activities, allow me to show you 2 videos.
Growing Greener Asia, bringing a better tomorrow. Asia Forest Cooperation Organization. As the world is facing global environmental challenges, the international communities have put much effort through joint actions like Sustainable Development Goals. The Asian region is laden with rich forest resources, yet currently very vulnerable to the threats of climate change and forest devastation due to socio-economic and environmental factors caused by pressure on economic growth and natural disasters. The international communities called upon Korea to take a role in sharing experiences in forest rehabilitation. In response, Korea has proposed the Asian Forest Cooperation Organization in 2009 to strengthen regional cooperation in the forest sector in Asia. As the initial phase towards AFoCO, the ASEAN-Korea Forest Cooperation started out in 2012. After rounds of dialogue meetings to broaden the regional scope Asia-wide, the AFoCO agreement was adopted. Now involving 14 countries across Asia. With the collaborative efforts among Korea, the Philippines, Brunei Darussalam, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Singapore, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, Bhutan, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia. The grand journey of AFoCO began on April 27, 2018. For the past years, AFoCO has been implementing various forestry activities through the Landmark Program and 14 projects in 10 countries. These activities address different socio-environmental aspects unique to each region, setting a practical model for regional forest cooperation. Through regional education and training center built in Norbu, Myanmar, as well as training courses and scholarship program for graduate degree, AFoCO will continue fostering competent forest experts in the region. Aside from training and scholarship programs, officials from the member countries are dispatched to the Secretariat, contributing to creating institutional environment that mutually understands and respects various cultures. From now on, the AFoCO will continue member-driven activities to pursue partnership and sustainability, building upon competency, transparency, and equity. The new phase of AFoCO will contribute to the member countries in achieving the global goal of increasing forest cover, implementing Paris Agreement on climate change, particularly in forestry sector, and improving livelihood and income through forestry-related activities. AFoCO will establish customized afforestation and restoration models, support research and development in climate change adaptation approaches in the forestry sector, and introduce systematic management of forest disasters. AFoCO will also promote local livelihood improvement and community-based small enterprise development, generating multiple benefits for the forests and local people, and further strengthen institutional capabilities to identify common issues of member countries and promote common interests and positions at the global level, eventually building a strong foundation as a steadfast organization. For the coming years, AFoCO will put utmost efforts to realize healthier forests and greener Asia. Together, we will take on the challenge and plant new possibilities to reach new heights of greener Asia. Asia Asian Forest Cooperation Organization.
Excellency Dr. Park Chong-ho, Vice Minister of Courtyard Forest Service, Honorable Dr. Pham Duc Chien, Vice Director General, Vietnam Administration of Forest, and the President of AFoCO Assembly, distinguished speakers, distinguished representatives from the embassies and international organizations and institutes, distinguished representatives of Assembly and observers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and honor to welcome our distinguished delegates and participants to this first international workshop on achievements and way forward organized by the Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, AFoCO, in Seoul, Korea. This workshop is especially meaningful as it is the first workshop being organized since the successful inauguration of AFoCO in April 2018. AFoCO, an intergovernmental organization, has recently expanded its scope to include member countries from across Asia. The dedication and hard work of all parties of AFoCO has resulted in creation of an important regional platform that will continue to contribute to the restoration and rehabilitation of degraded forests in the region, especially in the face of changing climate. AFoCO's strategies, priorities for the next 5 years represent the main areas of AFoCO in which AFoCO is concentrating its efforts to achieve its vision of achieving greener Asia. A total of $23.87 million in funds has been committed to support the regional and individual projects in Asia to achieve impacts that benefit AFoCO member countries. The establishment of the Regional Education and Training Center in Myanmar last year marks another important milestone in AFoCO's growth as an intergovernmental organization, while solidifying our commitment towards the capacity development to empower our member countries to deal with the pressing environmental degradation and climate change in the region. The accomplishment and the partnership built thus so far have played a great role in fostering closer ties among our members and strengthening joint efforts towards maintaining healthy ecosystem services as well as improving livelihoods in the region. In line with this momentum, today's international workshop on achievements and way forward will further gather the experts and officials to highlight and reflect on the past activities of AFoCO and explore potential areas of collaboration. On this Happy Earth Day, I look forward to a free, frank, and fruitful discussion where learning, sharing, and building partnership takes a central stage. I thank you for your kind attention.
Good morning. 반갑습니다. Distinguished Mr. Chencho Norbu, the Executive Director of the AFoCO, and Dr. Pham Duc Chien, Chair of this AFoCO session, and the Honorable Delegates of AFoCO member states. I would cordially welcome all of you to the second session of the AFoCO Assembly and its international workshop on the achievement and the way forward. I would like to mark the holdings of both of these meaningful events held by AFoCO as a proud global body. And I am indeed delighted to deliver congratulatory remarks here at this platform, where an insightful discussion is expected for the great advance. Back in 2009, I served as the director of KFS International Cooperation Division, engaging in the initial stage discussion from the days of the small O, the current AFoCO's former self. With most of you here on the establishment of AFoCO, whose idea was first floated at the ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit meeting. What's more, I also worked as the executive director of the interim secretariat of AFoCO both at field and at office to ensure the vigorous progress of the budding organization, all of which could explain my long accumulated affection for AFoCO. Thus, I feel much rewarded and proud to greet you to this official event of AFoCO, which now has stood tall in the Pan-Asia arena. In April 2018, AFoCO took its first official step as the agreement on its establishment came into effect, which was the culmination of our decade-old journey to greener Asia. And now, 12 months have passed since AFoCO's official launch, Mr. Chencho Norbu, seasoned on the international stage and passionate in AFoCO activity, was appointed as AFoCO's first ever executive director. And the sprouting organization already completed the strategic plan 2019 and 2023 with its mid to long-term vision. Last July saw the take-off of the regional education and training center designed for nurturing natural capacity in forestry. Over the past year, AFoCO has laid the firm foundation for each giant step forward. I believe the springboard for another quantum leap is just around the corner, so I would kindly ask AFoCO to keep moving forward side by side with another global bodies. For Titan Forest Cooperation and actively dedicate itself to cooperative activity, thereby further lifting its status in the international community. I hope you will passionately share insightfully opinion at this event on AFoCO's activities conducted for regional forest conservation and restoration, and the reduction of greenhouse gas emission. I cordially ask you your heart-warming interest in and support for every step taken by AFoCO to make Asia greener and more prosperous in harmony with the nature. The Republic of Korea will synergistically cooperate with AFoCO for further greening Asia, in expectation of more of the Asian countries joining AFoCO. In the meantime, I would also kindly request for your intense support for and interest in the ASEAN ROK high-level meeting on Forestry 2019, planned to be held in the first quarter in this year, in commemoration with the 30th anniversary of the dialogue relations between the two sides. And lastly, I would like to extend my wholehearted gratitude to the AFoCO Secretariat for organizing this event, let alone each committed activity made thus far. Once again, I would welcome all the participants present here and thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Dear Dr. Park Chong-ho, Deputy Minister of the Forest Service. Dear Mr. Chencho Norbu, Executive Director of AFoCO Secretariat. Distinguished delegates, representatives, and guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here to attend the workshop and to have a very good chance to express my deep congratulations on the AFoCO and its achievement, as well as hope for its future development. The workshop today is very special as it is the first international workshop organized by the AFoCO since its inauguration in April 2018. AFoCO, with support from Government of Korea and with non-stop efforts of all member countries and core value of partnership, has been contributing to strengthening forestry cooperation among members countries as well as promoting sustainable forest management in the region for a greener Asia. I hope that through this workshop, lessons and experience will be learned from and share each other. Ideas and initiatives of the workshop will bring up into AFoCO the new wind and energy for realizing AFoCO's strategic priorities for the period 2019 to 2023. Additionally, on the occasion of the first anniversary of the AFoCO, I congratulate great achievements of the AFoCO and encourage all member countries to work together for our common goals of a greener Asia. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to convey my warmest regards to you and my sincere thanks to the AFoCO Secretariat for this well-organized workshop. I wish an interesting and a fruitful workshop. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My presentation is to kickstart this workshop, and I'll be covering basically what AFoCO has done over the past 7 or 8 years, starting from 2011 until today. So I'll be covering all the activities and trying to link with the current AFoCO priorities, strategic priorities. So my name is Htain Lin. I'm from Myanmar. Actually, I've been working with I was working with the AFoCO since 2011 until 2017. So that's why I think I'm invited to share the knowledge and experience that AFoCO has done. So it is a privilege and honor for me to be here, and I'd like to thank the AFoCO Secretariat led by Mr. Chencho for inviting me here. And I'm just covering a few slides, and some of them may be overlap with what we have seen in a video. So anyway, I'll try to make it a bit tight and short to the point. Okay. This is just recalling the AFoCO. So if you look at the initiative, you will see that it was started about 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, around in June, there was the first time that the name of AFoCO has been introduced at the ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit held in this country. So it is the first time that the ASEAN countries has welcomed and support the initiative of AFoCO. And then since then, AFoCO with the support of the Korea Forest Service, the activities have been launched. Many activities have been done over the past since 2012 to 2016. And as we all know, AFoCO entered into force last year in 27th of April. And as you see it now, today, this week, AFoCO is entering into the first year. It is celebrating the first year anniversary of AFoCO this week. So basically, my presentation covered these, summarized all the activities we have done over the past. So since 2010-11, there were 16 individual cooperation projects, 10 regional cooperation projects, and 1 regional training and education center established in Myanmar, and the scholarship program in Korean universities. We had 12 masters and 4 PhD so far, and fellowship program. It was in 2015, 2017, and MOU with many external agencies and institutions, about 18. It was done in the past, and so far also under this AFoCO, there are one MOU signed with between Korea Forest Service and AFoCO. And technical trainings and workshops, there are more than 22,400 people from basically mostly from ASEAN countries, and participated in 67 events. So this is summary of what has been done for the past 9 years, 8 to 9 years. So the cooperation projects has 3 key focus. So one is action-oriented. The second is country-driven. It is basically the need of that country, member country. And the third is the regional focus. So these are 3 elements that the activities in the past have been working on. Next, please. So for the 16 individual projects, you can see there are 5 areas. So when we compare today with those we have done in 2011, I think you can see some of the similarities. For example, forest restoration, community forestry and non-timber forest products, and capacity building. These are the things that started AFoCO. So what I'd like to highlight today is those activities done in 2011 are very much similar today. For the second, for example, climate change mitigation was started in 2011, but today AFoCO is focusing on climate change adaptation. Next, please. So these are kind of activities that are done under the individual cooperation projects: Malaysia, Laos, Myanmar, Indonesia, Vietnam. Next. And these are the 10 regional cooperation projects done. Different, a little bit different. Regional meaning it is more than one country. But as you see, number 8, 9, and 10, actually they are coming for one country, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. But they are under the one program called Landmark Program. So that's why I put these 3 under this regional cooperation project. So there was a regional cooperation program called Landmark Program. Under that, number 8, number 9, and number 10 were, some of them are still ongoing. So you can see some of them are finished, some of them are done, and still some of them are ongoing. Next. So this is, I get it from the AFoCO website. So in where the activities are located. You can see in all over the ASEAN countries, so far the activities have been done in 10 ASEAN countries. Next. So now I'm going into AFoCO strategic priorities, and then I'm going to work a little bit. I'm going to give you some kind of link with what we have done in the past to the AFoCO strategic priority that we have started this year until 2023. So as you see, the activities are quite similar to what I've shown before. So customized restoration and processing model, R&D in climate change adaptation. It's not mitigation, at the moment it is adaptation. And then the systematic management of forest-related disasters and improvement of local livelihood and small enterprises, strengthening institutional capabilities and regional action. So these are the 5 priorities that AFoCO has decided to do at least until 2023. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of how these cooperation activities in the past were linked to the strategic area of AFoCO. Next. So number 1 is about customized restoration and reforestation rehabilitation model. So you can see those activities done in Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, and Thailand are very much under this category. So there are actually majority of the activities are falling under this priority. Next. that is another example. We have seen Viet Nam and Cambodia the same under this first the customized restoration and rehabilitation model. Thanks. So this is where the second AFoCO priorities are linked. And if you look at the sorry, let me go back. Yeah. If you look at the bullet points here, you can see. So some of these activities like climate proofing of Philippines master plan for forestry development, it was also linked to this adaptation process. And restoration of mangrove in Thai Lin. Later, our colleague will be explaining about that project. And also one project basically dealing with endemic, endangered, and threatened species in Malaysia and Thailand. And they are also linked to the climate change adaptation. So that's where I found these, at least 3 of them are linked to this second priority. And this is the third priority of AFoCO. I mean, I'm not saying this is the first, second, third. I'm trying to say all of the 5 priorities are equally important. But at the same, but we just give a number. So that's why we came like 1, 2, 3. But this is the third one, which we believe that Korea has an advantage, for example, like demonstration of forest fire control and some technology to help some AFoCO member countries in terms of management on forest-related disasters. This is where we will have to find more and more activities over the past, in the coming years. This is number 4, local livelihood improvement in community base. So there are also activities done in Vietnam, in Myanmar, and Indonesia, and Thailand. So these are very much community-based and local livelihood, very much based on the enterprise development. So let me go to the number 5 priorities: strengthening institutional capabilities, diversifying resources, and promoting regional actions. So you will see these are scholarship programs. Many of the ASEAN, the candidates from ASEAN countries have graduated from many Korean universities. And also we have a fellowship program. Some of our fellows are here in the room, so you will see them. And we have a 1-year program in 2015-2016, and then next year 2016-17 program. So 7 countries send their fellows to that program. And these are some examples of MOU signed by AFoCO. The latest one is MOU with AFS signed in 2015. So we have some of the MOU done with the international agencies. Altogether it's 18. And now this is one regional education and training center established in Norbu, Myanmar. It has been operating since 2018. So even before this, the training institute, AFoCO has delivered many training courses hosted by many countries. So basically, many technical training courses, about over 60 training courses, and more than 2,400 people participated in these workshops and training. I think that's all from me to capture all of the attention. Thank you.
Symposium. Dr. Sophia, please.
My presentation is conservation of forest genetic resource and forest rehabilitation in Cambodia. I have actually totally have 4 points for sharing with you. The first one is general trend in conservation of forest genetic resource in Cambodia. And for the introduction, we have about 8.7 million natural forest cover in Cambodia, or about 48% of the total land area. And there are 2 ministries that managing natural forests. The first one is the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery, and the second is the Ministry of Environment with many protection and protected area, protection forest and protected area. And then we have more than 3,000 sick plant species. And we have about 34 species which are in need of immediate conservation. And there are 4 types of forest: evergreen forest, deciduous forest, flooded forest, and mangrove forest in Cambodia. Including flooded forest also. And these are the species that are in need of immediate conservation. I'm not going to read this name. The type of the forest in Cambodia, just to have you have an overview of the features of the forest in Cambodia. Main policy related to conservation of genetic resource in Cambodia. We have, I just put here 2 main policy. The first one is National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. And this one encourage the establishment of in situ and ex situ conservation, and include the herbarium collection. And the second policy is National Forest Program 2010-2029. Also encourage the establishment of in situ and ex situ conservation, and also the use of forest genetic resource. I'm not going to talk into detail into this one. For the second point, is the introduction of the AFoCO project in Cambodia. Currently, we have 2 AFoCO funded projects running in Cambodia. The first one is promotion of forest rehabilitation in Cambodia and Vietnam through demonstration, model, and improvement of seed supply system. That means that focus on 2 aspects. The first one is make sure that tree seed is available for the tree planter, and second part is demonstration of good practice of forest restoration. This is a 5-year project, and this is a regional project which we are working with our colleagues from Vietnam. And then the goal, the aim is to stimulate local forest restoration activity in Cambodia and Vietnam by demonstrating a forest restoration model and ensure the accessibility of to seed by seed user. And we have 5 specific objectives, and also 5 expected output. The first one is about seed source establishment, and the second one, improvement of seedling and management. This is relevant to Vietnam. And then the third one is establishment of tree seed laboratory and tissue culture laboratory both in Cambodia and Vietnam. And then the fourth one is the tree seed supply. This is relevant to apply in Cambodia. And then the demonstration of forest restoration model. In Vietnam, they work in one province, but in Cambodia we work in the whole country. The second project, establishment of forest genetic resource research center for reforestation of major timber tree species in Cambodia. It is a 10-year project which focus on implementation of the long-term tree breeding plan and strengthen the restoration and tree breeding capability of forestry administration. For the expected output, we will establish progeny. We will establish clonal SIP chart of 3 species, Dalbergia cochansinensis, Pterocarpus antricatus, and Pterocarpus macrocarpus. This and so far we are quite successful with this one for the clonal SIP chart, and we have some difficulty with this species, Pterocarpus antricatus. And then alongside with this, we have to establish progeny test for this at the same time by establishing clonal SIP chart of these 3 species. For the third point in this presentation is the contribution of the AFoCO project in terms of forest genetic resource in Cambodia. It's just the summary from the activity under these 2 projects. The first is in situ conservation of we call 6 sources in natural forest. This is the first step of 3 improvement. We still have some good stem in natural forest where we can identify as 6 sources of priority 3 species. In this case, we have 23 species, and then we collect 6 from that area for planting program. These are the name of the species that from of the priority species that we identify in the 6 sources. The red dot the location of the 6 sources in natural forest. The green color natural forest in Cambodia, and the red dot identify 6 sources. We are mainly located in the community many forests. These are some of the activities with identifying 6 sources. For example, in this case, we have Pterocarpus macrocarpus. Also, this also Pterocarpus macrocarpus. I think many of us quite familiar with this name. And then Sindora cochansinensis, and then here Herichia javanica. And then we have some stand for the ex situ conservation, or we call SIP production area of some species in 2 locations in the coastal area. One in the established by a previous project, by another project, and for this project we just only maintain. And under this project we established this SIP production area of this species in simple carving. And then the clonal SIP chart of these 3 species that I just mentioned. These are our plantation and also SIP production area in coastal area. This is the photo of the SIP chart of this. In this case, is Dalbergia cochansinensis, which already start flowering after I think the 10 years. In the 2nd year, we call this from clone, so that it flower very soon. And the aerial photo of the clonal SIP chart of Dalbergia cochansinensis. And then for the 3 SIP laboratory, we established a small 3 SIP laboratory, and in our institute, and we have 3 staff members, including me, and we work hard for the I mean for the laboratory. And the idea for establishing of this laboratory to facilitate SIP purchase and SIP testing and storage for some orthodox species. And then we provide training to SIP collector and SIP user, and we also supervise student research thesis. In the photo, we distribute seed collection equipment to local community that are managing community forests, and also the seed stock that we identify in the natural forest. And we are going to write a feature story because one of them here quite successful in terms of trading seed and seedling. This year we are going to write a feature story about this activity. We will translate in English also. Yeah, the last point for my presentation is the future opportunity in the forest sector in Cambodia. Before I go to that detail, I would like to introduce about the one of the policy paper, the latest one, but still in draft. The production forest strategic plan still in draft, but we already submitted to the cabinet of ministers already for approval, but so far have not been approved yet. The strategy proposed 4 key strategic objectives. First one is strengthen forest governance framework. The second one, ensure sustainable production of wood and non-wood forest products through reforestation and forest rehabilitation and planted forest management. You can see here, we still give high priority to forest restoration. And the third one is promote active participation of local communities. I will talk more about this third point later. And then the last one is strengthen institution capacity and inter-institution collaboration. For the proposed area for consideration, this is just my idea. Maybe my colleague from Cambodia, they have a different view. But what I would like to share here is just some thought that we can consider for future development of project proposal. If you see the map of Cambodia here, you see the yellow part here surrounding Tonle Sap Lake, and from Thailand through to Vietnam here, lowland area, and the other part highland, with the water flow into Tonle Sap. And this area where the population density is quite high, and most of the city and all the economic activity are going on here in this area, not in the forest. But in the forest, we have a community forest. We have some small population there in the forest. The dot here is representing the rice growing area and also the density of population. As you can see, the pattern is along the central plain of Cambodia. So my thinking is that we have to serve these 2 groups of people. I mean the 2 groups, those that are living in the forest area, I mean the community forest. And especially we have to move our attention to the people that are living in this area. So far, being a forester, that we only think about forest in terms of the forest boundary. I mean that we think only about the forest here. We never think about how about this area. I mean that the rice growing area or the agricultural landscape. So that I propose these 4 points here. The first one is community-based resource management, which are still relevant to the priority, the strategic priority of the AFoCO. And then these 3 parts serving the need of the people in this area. Mainly the need of these people in this area. The watershed resource management, sustainable land management, and the promotion of tree planting in agricultural landscape. The last 2 may somehow interrelated or linked. community-based forest resource management. So far we have established around more than 500,000 hectares of community, what we call community forestry. And based on our national forest program, we are going to place 2 million hectares of natural forest under the management of local community. We initiated this program since early 1990s. And then, so I think it is time to review what is the lesson learned from this, what is the success story, what is the failure, so that we have to review all these things. And then assess the technology need for improvement of the value chain of non-timber forest product. This part of this, I mean, the point is not the main attention in Cambodia so far. I'm not going to read detail about this, but yeah, for the development, we can pilot the commercial utilization of non-timber forest product, and then something like restoration of commercial non-timber forest product. Yeah, just some idea that I drop in here. For the second one is about the watershed management. This is new in Cambodia, although it is quite old in, I think maybe in the Philippines or Thailand or even in Vietnam. But in the country, we have just made a management plan for one critical watershed area so far. So we need to do more about that. I propose activity here like rehabilitation of environmentally critical area and watershed source environmental critical area. Here I refer to the buffer area along the river, something like that. And then development of integration water management plan for at least for some important or critical watershed area. And then number 3 is sustainable land management. Something like testing and monitoring of effectiveness of soil and water conservation. We have, for example, like the soil, soil erosion is in some area. We have like 26 tons of soil eroded per hectare per year in some one of based on our study in one of the provinces. And then incentive for the economic land concession. We have economic land concession going on there in Cambodia to adopt green technology for the sustainable land management. We can pilot agroforestry model and soil and water conservation for something like a demonstration. Yeah, training and integration of the what we call communal land use planning into the landscape plan. In Cambodia, we have the government assigned the task to the commune. The commune is the second lowest administrative unit in Cambodia. They have to make some kind like commune land use plan. And so far, there's only a few plans that have established, that have developed their land use plan. And then the last one is the tree in the agricultural landscape. In this case, we have just take a photo in my home village. And then we have here the Diplodocus alatus that's growing in some like what we call the abandoned land just among the rice field. And this also contributes very significantly in terms of economic value. We have 3 million hectares of cropland, and then 4 million hectares of paddy field in Cambodia. And based on our research, 3 in the agricultural landscape rank third after rice and livestock in terms of income for rural household. Yeah, for the research, I put here contribution of on-farm tree to cultural and socio-economic development, and we can select the compatible tree species. I'm sure that not the introduction of tree to species not generally generate a positive impact, but the negative impact are there, so that we have to select the compatible tree species. And then for the development, we can develop a small-scale family nursery and promote tree planting demonstration site, whether in the rice field or in the pagoda, in the school or along roadside. Yeah, thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy here to share with you my presentation on AFoCO Mangrove Forest in Vietnam, some achievements and the way towards the same. In my presentation, I will show you 7 parts. The first one is general information of Vietnam. The second one is forest, very important. And the third one is a bit more focused on mangrove. And the next one is why we need the project. And the last ones are some achievements and the future activities. You see here, so we are at the moment in Korea, but Vietnam here, we share the total land areas more than 300 square meters, and with more than 4,000 islands. And we share boundary with China, of course, Laos, Cambodia, and the east is our east. And the long coastline is, you see, from the north to the south is more than 3,200 kilometers. Is the coastal lines, and where mangrove occurs naturally, and here the north is was plantation. Population is around nearly 100 million now. Capital, we have 54 ethnic minorities, and of course our third language is Vietnamese. We devise our, you see, Vietnam has a long S shape from the north to the south, and we divide the whole country into 8 ecological zones. And based on this one, we have strategies, species, plantation, and natural forest for each region zone, ecological zones. And yes, you see here northwest, northeast, and southwest as well. And you see from the north to the south, the mangrove harbors or the country. Well, in terms of inland forest, so we have the total more than 14 million hectares, covering more than 41% up to 2017. Now it's higher, of course, 2019 now. And natural forest is, you see here, natural forest more than 10 million hectares, and plantation more than 4 billion hectares roughly. And divided by site conditions. So we have, you see, forests on land, mountains, of course, most. And forest on, we have stone mountain, limestone mountain, very strict conditions for trees to grow, because it's very hard condition, society. And here, mangrove is here. At the moment, 2017 is more than 160,000 hectares, and forest on sand as well to protect from sand moving. We also divide this forest into 3 types of forest. The first one, production forest. You see, the main one for produce wood, timber, non-timber forest products, and so on. Protection forest to prevent from, you see, watershed like Dr. Sophia said. Also the coastal line. And special use forest, natural park, nature reserves, also. And of course, protection forest and special use forest somehow or they share some similarities. Well, forest covers over time in our country. You can see from the picture here, the forest cover from 1943 is around 42%, and it down quite a lot in 1990s. And then after quite lots of big programs, so it moved again, increased again. And 2016 is 41% cover, and up to now around nearly 42% forest cover. And here's a plantation, you see, it really increased fast, of course from 2000 and then up to now. Here, the mangrove forest, you see, actually it has been dramatically decreased in the couple, maybe one decade, some decades. 1943, and more than 4,000 hectares, and up to 2000 and 1,055,000 hectares, and you see 2012 only more than 100,000 hectares. Well, due to the degraded and destroyed mangroves, so we lack crucial roles in protecting in ecological environment for mangrove forest. And because here, the ecological roles of mangrove forests, including quite a lot of criteria, for instance, restricting the impact of floods, winds and tides, limiting erosions, and penetrations of sandy water, fixing silt, protection and conservation of biodiversity, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and reduction the impact by climate change. You see quite lots of flooding, typhoon occurs, and also destroyed the local house, local life. One more. Because of mangrove have been destroyed and degraded. So local people run out of aquatic sources like fish, shrimps, crabs, and so on for the local people. Run out of firewood, charcoal, tannins, and honey as well. And also we see because mangrove was destroyed, so the typhoon have access the local lives and destroy the houses, crops, the local people. And also, quite lots of dikes are destroyed by strong typhoon and tide as well. And that's why livelihoods are local livelihoods, particularly for the local living near or in the coastal lines, very difficult. Here, so the project lines. So Thái Bình here is a coastal province in the north of Vietnam, with 54 kilometers of coastal lines and 4 big river mouths where mangrove occurs. And the mangrove ecosystem in Taipei province was severely degraded by annual floods, typhoon, aquaculture activities, land use change, cost for management. And for instance, from 2000 to 2012, the mangrove areas of Taipei province lost more than 1,000 hectares because of very strong typhoon. And to deal with the problems, it is very necessary to rehabilitate and develop mangrove forest in Vietnam in general and in Taipei province in specific, in order to improve protection functions of mangrove. And the second one is to improve livelihoods of local people by improving the aquatic sources and other sources helping the local people. Well, and with support from Korean Forest Service, Republic of Korea, and the AFoCO project, rehabilitation and development of mangrove forest ecosystem in Taipei province, Vietnam, was approved for funding in 2014, and it will last 10 years, 2014 to 2023 in Taipei program. Here is some meeting with, and here some pictures showing the mangrove in Taipei province. From here to the coastal line, the dike over there, and we did quite lots of work to recover the mangrove. Here, some brief about the project, and with the funds around $2 million US. The site of the project is in Taipei province here, and the province has 2 districts with the coastal line. Name names are here Taipei district and Dien district here. And of course here we have the site along this area here, about there is existing mangrove, and we need to plant more outside. Also enrichments as well. Here, the long-term objective of the project is to rehabilitate and develop the mangrove forest of Taipei province. And it has 2 short-term objectives. The first one is to afforest, rehabilitate and manage sustainably the mangrove. And the second one, also very important, foster the knowledge and capacities on mangrove rehabilitation, protection and development as well. Of course, biodiversity conservation, coping with climate change, and improve the livelihoods of local people. It has 3 components. The first one is plant, supplementary plant, and protection as well. The second one is education, training, capacity building, and communication. And the third one is operation and management of the project. The same with other projects. Well, some main outputs we expected from the beginning of the project is to design and plant 100 hectares of new planting, 100 hectares of supplementary planting, and protect 1,000 hectares, of course, and quite lots of work and achievement for education and training, capacity building, communication component. You can see from here. We expect that organize more than 10 training courses for relevant stakeholders. Of course, and study tour, workshops, and very important to generate the technical guidelines and communication as well, to disseminate to the local people and relevant stakeholders. Here are some achievements. From the beginning, we established 2 PMUs from the central government and the province. We have two PMUs to organize and implement the project. We have organized quite lots of meetings from central to communes and even the hamlets to implement activities and also to improve communication awareness of the local people. Organized instruction workshops and thematic workshops on mangrove and ecotourism, of course, domestic workshops, not international workshops like this one. Some achievements in terms of trainings. We have organized trainings and around 20 people per each. And you see quite lots of topics: nursery management and seedling production, site preparation, because here it's very hard to design mangrove site for planting and to replanting. Of course, very important, community-based forest management. We protect the mangrove based on communities, the local people. And of course, developments of planning and financial analysis also important for relevant stakeholders. And we also sending staff officers to oversee for their learnings experience from overseas Malaysia and Thailand. For mangrove protection, so we established mangrove protection teams in the local communes, and they themselves protect the mangrove. Of course, we have them to develop operation regulations by themselves, approved by themselves, and to protect the mangrove. And assist mangrove management regulation of the commune costs, and protect we're nearly 1,000 hectares of mangrove inside the project site. Provide protection uniforms and equipment, for instance, flash lights, boots, shoes, to the protected areas. And here are some achievements. We survey and design, and then at the moment we have planted 80 hectares new plantings in mangrove forest here. The site very hard. And supplementary planting 80 hectares as well, and good protection for nearly 1,000 hectares of existing mangrove and new planting and supplementation. For communication, so printing communication products, New Year calendar, manual on mangrove forest and soil, etc. And monthly propaganda by communes, voice station, very special in Vietnam for this one. Broadcasting news in provincial television and some newspapers for disseminating the results, activities of the project. And very important that the awareness of local people improve due to the activities of the project. You can see here, local people who gather in meetings, they speak out their ideas, their attitudes in order to improve the natural mangrove, natural environment, in order to improve themselves, their livelihoods. You see here, and some awareness of local people. The livelihoods of local peoples, indirect impact of the project. Local people attending seedling production, site preparation, planting and protection as well, in order to improve they get the budgets from the project and from other work. More incomes attains by improved mangrove, for instance, the fish sources and other aquatic sources for mangrove improve by we have more and quantity and qualities mangrove. Less impact from natural disaster, typhoon and poor winds, tides, and good environment for local people and their agriculture production. And you see, from Taiping province, Taiping project, we have good contribution to the national achievement. You see, we have 2012, 1,031,000 hectares, and 2017 we have 1,064,000 hectares of mangrove. Good achievement for our national goal. Some the future activities, we will continue new plantings and supplementary plantings as well, and good protection for 1,000 hectares inside the project site, and also other mangrove nearby in the province and the country as well. Organize trainings for relevant stakeholders and organize workshops, meetings, and we also consider and develop fee-fed payment for forest ecosystem services. We consider how to, actually in Vietnam we have done this one for inland forest, but for mangrove forest the beginning. So we hope in the near future we can apply the fee-fed for mangrove. We consider the extensions of the model to other places and regions as well. We also need to conduct assessment of how improve mangrove contribute to local environment and livelihoods as well. This one after sometimes when mangrove improve, so livelihoods and environment will be improved, but how we can calculate something like we can hand it and show the picture is also important. And consider more technical studies and capacity building activities to provide a habitat for diverse species of flora and fauna as well, plants and fish. And to build the project as a demonstration model for learning, for instance, in terms of planning, stakeholders, investment, community mobilization, participation, technical support, and its executions in mangrove forest. Okay. Thank you for.
So, good morning everyone. My topic is about the trends in community-based forest management and its relationship to livelihood and forest rehabilitation. But for purposes of discussion, please allow me to narrow down my presentation to the cases of digital projects under AFoCO that was implemented with the Philippines as the lead implementing country and which used the CBFM approach. So, the outline of my presentation, basically, I'll just walk you through a brief background about the community-based forest management strategy in the ASEAN context, and also the basis of CBFM implementation. Also, I will discuss the trends in community-based forest management and the contributions of the AFoCO regional projects to these trends in CBFM implementation. Then, afterwards, I will walk you through very briefly to the achievements of the two regional projects, the AFoCO CFM Planning Project and the AFoCO BIPS project. And finally, I will discuss the challenges and opportunities of implementing regional projects under AFoCO. So, just to level up on the terminologies that we are using with regards to community-based forest management, several countries, different countries use several terminologies in terms of community participation with regards to forest management. But some countries use village forestry, others use community forestry. But in the ASEAN context, we collectively term the approach as social forestry. But for the regional projects, we adopted the term community-based forest management. So, for the definition, I would like to borrow the definition of the Philippines with regards to CBFM. It is defined as the organized effort of the government to work with the communities in and near public forest lands with the intent to protect, rehabilitate, manage, conserve, and utilize the forest resource. So basically, we are seeing three main ideas here. Government, communities, because they are the main actors in forest management, towards the management of forest lands. So taking off from that definition of the CBFM, I would like to explain the objectives of CBFM in two simple aspects. First is the objective with regards to the community. Basically, we are talking about transformation of the community. From being beneficiaries, meaning they are just recipients of the project, gradually we want to transform them to being partners. They are involved in the implementation. And ultimately, we want to transform them to become forest managers. So by saying they are forest managers, we mean that they have the capacity to make the right decisions with regards to the management of their area, and also the authority to implement those decisions, of course, subject to existing policies, rules, and regulations. Now, for the CBFM area, if the area is unproductive, we want the area to be productive, that could sustain the community needs of the CBFM unit, within the CBFM unit, but also, ultimately, we want the CBFM area to be productive that provides ecosystem services to the entire landscape. So by saying ecosystem services, we mean soil and water conservation, health benefits, carbon sequestration, among others. So, given the definition and objectives, we can say that CBFM is being implemented following the principles of community participation, sustainable forest management, social equity, and now, with the current trend, we also look at the CBFM unit as part of a bigger landscape. So, generally, there are four phases or steps in CBFM implementation. First is the preparatory stage, which involves IEC campaign or awareness raising, then community organizing, community strengthening, which involves capacity building of POs, provision of trainings, and finally, in some cases, we issue tenure instruments so that their occupancy over the area will be legalized. So, when they are ready, now we go to planning. Planning involves resource assessment, preparation of the community plan, then adoption by the community, and finally, affirmation of the plan by the support agency. I would like to emphasize the importance of affirmation of the support agency because by affirming, the government is affirming that the plan is technically feasible, and also they are confirming that they are willing or they will support the implementation of the plan. So that is one key inputs for the success of CBFM implementation. Now we go to implementation. After planning, when we have the plans already, we go to implementation. And implementation involves development projects, conservation projects, livelihood and enterprise projects, including networking with other institutions. And just like the other development programs or projects, it will include monitoring and evaluation, which includes checking of the progress of implementation, compliance to policies and standards, documentation of issues and concerns, and including best practices and lessons learned. Because these are inputs, again, to planning, so that we can plan better for the success of the program. So, taking off from these phases, we develop pivotal projects under AFoCO. So the first project is the AFoCO CFM planning project, or the AFoCO Community Forestry Management Planning Project, entitled Facilitating Community-Based Forest Management Planning Using Geographic Information System and Remote Sensing Technologies in Forest Resources Management. It is being implemented by the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. It started implementation in 2015, and it will be implemented up to the end of December 2019. So, this project has 5 major components. First is the GIS, or map-based planning. Second, we did not just stop with the planning aspect. We also introduced development or implementation of the plan, agroforestry plantation. Also, it has a component on livelihood enterprise development, database development, and capacity building of communities. So I will explain later the details of these projects. So if you are going to look at the components, basically it facilitates the 3 major steps in CBF implementation. It contributes to the 3 major steps: planning, implementation, including monitoring and evaluation. So another project is the AFoCO BIPS project, or the AFoCO Brunei, Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore project. It's entitled Capacity Building on the Application of Landscape Approach to Support the Sustainable Natural Resources Management in Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore. So the components of this project are vegetation analysis, establishment of demonstration plans for restoration, capacity building of communities. So looking at the component, it directly contributes to implementation, to the step of CBFM implementation. And also, indirectly, it contributes to planning and also monitoring and evaluation. So, what are the contributions of these AFoCO projects with regards to the trends in community-based forest management? Basically, these projects are facilitating the improvement of the planning process. In terms of resource assessment, back in the days, in the early start of implementation of the social forestry programs, resource assessment is being done through rapid rural appraisal, which basically is highly dependent on the expert opinion of the output of the activity. But gradually, it was translated into participatory rural appraisal, meaning experts and communities are working together so that they can arrive at a better outcome of resource assessment. But in the AFoCO project, it's still participatory rural appraisal, but we are bringing in new technologies such as GIS and satellite imageries to the process of resource assessment. So what are the benefits of using these technologies? Basically, it's cost effective, time efficient, and more accurate. So also, in terms of form and content of the community plan, previously, plans being developed for the community are traditional text-heavy plan, meaning most are text and descriptions. But now, these projects introduced a more simple map-based tabular plan. So the plan is easy to prepare, easy to understand even by the community, and also easy to monitor by the support agency. All of these are leads toward the achievement of the ultimate goal of CBFM, which is sustainable forest management. So also, in terms of implementation, these projects are contributing to the improvement of the implementation of activities in CBFM areas. So, in terms of development intervention, back in the days, we see development intervention at the level of the farm or the farm plan only. And gradually, when we are developing the community resource community plan, we see it as in a bigger picture within the CBFM unit itself. But what we want is to see the plan of the CBFM to implement the development activities with respect to the entire landscape of the from the ridge to reef horizon. So basically what we want to do is development intervention should be in harmony and consistent with the other plans of the neighboring or other ecosystems within the ridge to reef horizon. So it involves holistic development of across ecosystems. Also, in terms of conservation initiatives, back in the days, reforestation and conservation initiatives are basically government-driven because of the funding support from the government. Then, as we go on with the implementation of CBFM, it became government and community participatory. But ultimately, we want the communities, the conservation initiative to be community-driven. Why? Because it promotes ownership of the project or the program, and also it is more sustainable. If the community owns the project or the program, it will be more sustainable. Again, towards the achievement of the sustainable forest management goal of the CBFM. Also, as I said a while ago, we developed a database system under the project. So, in a way, we are improving the decision support system with regards to the management of the CBFM area. So, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, basically, back in the days, it was need-based. We only monitor based on need. Then it became periodic. But now, monitoring of CBFM, also specifically in the CBFM areas covered by the project, is database driven. So, we can arrive at better judgment and also more options in terms of decisions. Again, towards sustainable forest management. So, technically, when we are talking about the trends, these projects contribute to the improvement of the planning process, improvement of the implementation, and also decision support system, which contributes ultimately going back to the CBFM objectives, wherein communities will be transformed from being beneficiaries to partners, to forest managers, and the CBFM area from being unproductive lands or idle lands or unmanaged lands to productive lands that support the community, and ultimately to productive lands that provides ecosystem services. Again, towards sustainable forest management. So some of the achievements of the AFoCO CFM planning project, the first project that was implemented by Philippines together with Indonesia and Thailand. We have completed the pilot testing of the GIS or map-based community planning. This was in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and also in Thailand. Also, we have enhanced the capacity of the community members and government technical personnel through trainings and on-site experiential learnings. Under the project, we are conducting capacity building activities and cross-country visits. Basically, the capacity building activities involve technical forestry and livelihood development projects. This is, again, in Indonesia. These are just some of the photo documentations in the Philippines and also in Thailand. Number 3, we also established agroforestry plantations within the area of the community. Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. Number 4, we developed and pilot tested the PO database system in support of the implementation of the community plan and monitoring of the CBFM area. The database system developed by Indonesia are actually map-based. In Philippines and in Thailand. And also through a regional workshop which we conducted under the project, we developed a regional template for planning. So this is just a template, this is suggestive, but this is not mandatory to all ASEAN member states. For the AFoCO project, we have completed the establishment of demonstration sites. For Brunei Darussalam, it is in a beach forest. For Indonesia, in Phouthone Forest, and for the Philippines, it is the demonstration that is in a natural forest. So that is in Brunei Darussalam, in Indonesia, and the Philippines. For Singapore, they have no demonstration pad. Also, we enhance the capacity of the community members and government technical personnel through trainings and on-site experiential learnings. Indonesia conducted training on restoration of degraded peatland forest. Philippines, our training is focused on vegetation assessment and the assisted natural regeneration technology in restoring degraded ecosystem. In Singapore, it's urban forestry and biodiversity conservation. This one is in Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore. And finally, we shared the lessons learned, the experiences of the AFoCO project to other ASEAN member states through a digital workshop that was done in Manila. This was the photo taken during the workshop. And except for Lao and Brunei, all the ASEAN member states attended that workshop. So, talking about challenges and opportunities, basically from the start, we know that consolidating the outputs of this project will be very difficult because each country have their own peculiarities in terms of culture, religion, economic status, access to technology, and biophysical conditions. These are just some of the lenses of identifying the peculiarities of each country. So, we really had a hard time consolidating the outputs. But, we see opportunities also. These projects are developing or producing knowledge products, and these knowledge products can be used by the ASEAN member states or the AFoCO member countries as reference in improving their policy, their practices, and other regulations. So initially, as an output of the regional workshop, we plan to request AFoCO Secretariat to put these knowledge products in their website or portal so that it can be accessed by anyone who is interested. And also, this project established pilot or demonstration sites. So these pilot or demonstration sites are designed not only for the country itself, but also it can serve as a learning site for the other countries as well. Just like what we did in the cross-country visits under the project. So, having said all of that, I would like to thank you very much.
I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Eti Ginoga from Indonesia. I would like to thank you, the AFoCO Secretariat, for inviting me here as an observer of this important occasion. And second, I would like to also thank you, the manager of the AFoCO project or AFoCO program that has been taken in several Asian countries, including Indonesia. It was a very comprehensive information. Although I think some more detailed information are needed there. And for Indonesia, I would like to add several delivery products that have been produced, including the books, the activities, for example, how the special planning on GIS have been connected to the Forestry 4.0 to sell the product of communities to the buyers in the in the national and also in the global level. So that's kind of activity that may, I would like to add some of Marlon presentation. And also last time we have several activity like how to package the products that has been identified from the planning to the implementation and to the market to support the green development and green forest management unit done by communities. And also for mangrove, I would like to add that additional information with regard to blue carbon that is very important. I would like to highlight the role of mangrove in blue carbon roles in NDC, National Determined Contribution, not only for mangrove, but also from peatland, from Mars and other ecosystem. And there are 43 species of mangrove. I would like to maybe ask what kind of species that is used in that area, and to measure, test, and verify the growth of mangrove is very needed to share the methodology and the role in blue carbon initiative. And in Indonesia, for peatland, as mentioned by Marlon, for the BRICS project, in peatland has gained a very important ecosystem nowadays because of their role in stock carbon and also their role in preventing unnecessary environment degradation, including fire. So we would like also to mention that peatland, sustainable peatland management has gained several attention to the global community, including the one that has been done in UNEA, United Nations Environment Assembly, and also another one is biodiversity. I really would like to see how biodiversity conservation can be incorporated in the future program of AFoCO, the IG target, the CBD, as well as the another assisting in mitigating and adaptation to climate change. I think that's for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Sapong from Thailand. My question is for Dr. Sothia from Cambodia. According to your presentation on the conservation of forest genetic resources and forest rehabilitation in Cambodia, as you know that the genetic resources and the tree improvement is very important at this period. It's mean that like I show you something in Thailand now. In the former time, we are not so successful for the forest plantation, for the forest restoration, because we have very strong law regulation. We only prohibit. But right now, we have a new idea. We will try to promote them to grow the tree for trade in the future. And we face the problem on the good genetic resources. We can promote them to grow the tree, but we cannot know the next 30 years what will happen with that tree. Is it will have the good luck, good shape, grow well? We don't know, because most of the seed, most of the genetic resources we got from the national forests, and we cannot guarantee anything. So the genetic improvement is very, very important to guarantee the people that in the next 30 years or 20 years they can have the good trees to be traded. otherwise we will fail again to promote them. So I support the Cambodia to have the genetic resources improvement, and also the technology that they use. They have the research on the tissue culture for the mass propagation, and I think that this is the AFoCO project, right? So the information and the result from the project, if it worked well with Cambodia, I think that it is good for the Cambodia to contribute this technology to our friend, to other country. So like you have the priority of the 3 species that you try to promote in your country, and you use and you can be successful with the tissue culture, and you can promote to other countries. But one thing that I just curious, in the list of the priority of the 3, I don't see the teak in the priority. What happened to teak? Because in the Greater Mekong sub-region, teak is always number 1. But in your country, I think no list of the teak. So could you please clarify for me? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sopol, for the sharing of information and also the comment for the the 3 improvement and conservation. Yes, before answering the question, just would like to add a little bit about the that we work not only conserve the genetic resource, but at the same time improve. That means that we start 3 improvement from the low level. The identify of 6 sources in natural forest. That means the first step in the 3 improvement, and then we go to the 6 production area. That means that the second step in 3 improvement, and then also we do something in the third step in 3 improvement is 6 orchard. That means the clonal 6 orchard that we work with the 3 species. And then we promote the use of the genetic resources. The collect seed from those stems for the tree planting program. And in 2015, we see that Dalbergia cochansinensis, the rosewood, is ranked first in terms of seedling produced and planted in Cambodia. That around 1.2 million seedlings produced by per year. In 2015. I do not think that the whole all the seedling that produced planted in that year, but maybe at least 70% of the seedling produced normally and planted particular year. Yeah, back to the tissue culture. We are not quite advanced in this aspect yet. All this we try to because our staff is still in the learning process. We are quite just still in the learning stage. We try to work with some hardwood species, but we so far not not good result that we can share yet. It is for your information. And back to the tick. We allow tick at least, and then we even have big Thai company that selling tick timber in Cambodia. Very high value for a plant of 1 meter long and with 30 centimeter width that costs us about $50 US. And then we even have what we call Grandis timber company, something like that, dedicated to the reforestation by tick only. But for the priority 3 species that we identify around 2002 and 2003, at that time, I think the tick is not was not in our mind yet, because tick is not indigenous to Cambodia. Although we know that tick is very high volume timber, but I think we give priority to our species such as the Norbergia cochansinensis, the Norbergia oliveri, and Axelia silocapa, and Pterocarpus macrocarpus, like that. Thank you.
Solutions, natural climate solutions that are also very efficient. Good afternoon, gentlemen, ladies. Very happy to be here. Speaking of AFoCO, some slides up. I can like this. Happy to talk to you about some of the reasons to think about green growth and sustainable forest landscapes, and to also talk a bit about possibilities for intergovernmental organizations like GGGI to work with AFoCO in the future. So first, I think you are all very aware of all the stresses, all the particularly climate change related stresses, all the forest fires we had last year must be very much on our mind. Of course, in a place like Korea, what we hear about every day as evidence of unsustainable growth is not climate change, it's fine dust. Actually, air pollution is a critical problem in many cities in Asia. But in any case, I think we probably don't need much, we don't need much more of a push than we already have had to realize that, yes, almost all developing countries still want to grow. Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economics. Economic growth is still the #1 priority. But I think more and more countries realize that the quality of growth really matters. I've been in this for a very long time, and for the largest part of the last 40 years, the Ministry of Finance would say, sorry, we have no time for environment or sustainability, we have to grow first, and then we'll worry about those other things later. But I think we've seen that the price to pay is very high, and really, yes, we need to grow, but the quality of growth matters. And we believe it is possible to have a development approach that seeks an economic growth that is also environmentally sustainable and that is socially inclusive. So that means we talk about low carbon and climate resilient development, or preventing pollution, or maintaining the health of ecosystems such as forest landscapes. That is what we talk about as green growth. There are, of course, other alternative approaches. For foresters, you might be aware of the bioeconomy. The UN likes to talk about the green economy. In Europe these days, the circular economy is very popular. Frankly, we believe that all these concepts share that they aim to move the economy in a more sustainable direction. GGGI does that. We have a history which is quite similar to yours. In 2010 or so, the Korean president set up a Korean non-profit organization around green growth, knowing that this was a subject very high on the international agenda. And then in 2012, at the Rio +20 meeting, 12 countries signed the establishment agreement of GGGI as an intergovernmental organization. And now we have actually 32 members. Burkina Faso was the last, and we have another 20 or so countries which are on the path to membership. So we've developed quite quickly, I think, in the last 6-7 years, to have staff in our member countries. Our headquarters is here in Seoul. We have a bit more than 100 staff there, but we have about 200 staff embedded in governments in a bit more than 30 countries. And we work on 4 themes: renewable energy, water and sanitation, sustainable landscapes, which is obviously where forests and agriculture fit, and then green cities. So what we do goes a bit from what we call our value chain approach. It starts sort of on the left-hand side with doing national economic planning, which can be national green growth plans, or it can be helping countries think through how to implement or meet their NDCs, all the way to working with countries to come up with a low emission development strategy, for instance, for Fiji, which the government there approved last year. Sometimes more targeted policies, can be a national renewable energy policy or a jurisdictional approach to conserving forest in a particular province. So we do things from policy and then moving to, if you like, implementation, the right-hand side of the value chain. And there we work with governments very often to develop projects that can attract investments. So what we call that is we'll help mobilize green and climate finance. That is our youngest activity that we've done for a few years now. In the last 2 years we've helped mobilize about $1 billion. So that is one of the, our successes, I think, that you can probably agree our members appreciate a lot. Now, shifting to sustainable landscapes, I mean, many people talk about landscapes, agriculture primarily as a way, you know, where they're vulnerable to climate change and where we need to adapt to climate change. But it's also good to know that you may be aware, but in other audiences I often have to explain this still. But actually, there are a lot of natural solutions, natural climate solutions that are also very efficient mitigation pathways. So for us, when we talk about natural landscapes, we would like to avoid deforestation, we'd like to adapt landscapes to be less vulnerable to climate change, and of course have sustainable livelihoods for those communities and people that live in them. We have a very complex theory of change, if you like. I don't think you are able to read all those boxes. But the bottom line is that we take stresses like climate change or the general valuation of natural capital as sort of the drivers or starting points, and then we do a number of things, activities that in the end are, if you go all the way to the right-hand side, meant to show outcomes in 6 strategic outcomes for us that go from indeed reduced emissions all the way to adaptation to climate change and have green jobs, as you see part in the middle there as well. So what does that mean in practice? Well, so some of that is that we do policy instruments there, as I mentioned at the top, or we help governments de-risk some of those policy instruments. That can sometimes lead to design business models, or it can be that we help de-risk financial instruments. I think you'll already see that while we can do this for forest systems, it's a bit different than what foresters normally do. Probably the largest group of our technical experts are actually finance people, people who used to work for banks or the World Bank, and that can help come up with structures or projects that can attract investors, whether they are public or TCF in a number of cases, or private in other cases. So I can give you some more practical examples, going to some country examples. So we think of landscapes as potentially having 3 returns. The financial returns is what normal economists always measure. Social returns you're familiar with, but what people aren't as familiar with is also natural capital returns. Those, if you like, goods and services that ecosystems provide, or that natural capital that people should take into account. Many economies grow, but deplete their natural capital, particularly their forest ecosystems, of course. So taking that into account is a key change that we try to get into government's thinking. So in practice that means we work on things from forest-based systems to mangrove-based systems, a little bit on fisheries and agriculture, not that much. Some on agriculture, particularly making agriculture more sustainable or more resilient to climate change, and of course reforestation and agroforestry as well. To give you a couple of examples, we have a number of countries that we work on forestry that are sometimes rather far from Asia. We have a large program in Colombia, particularly after the civil war there stopped. There's a large part of the country where, you know, for 40 years nobody could go, so there's a large part of the Amazon which is suddenly opening up to development pressures. And are there ways to develop that part of the Amazon in a way that doesn't lead to a lot of deforestation and soybean and cattle ranching? That can we come up with more integrated systems that provide a high return in small parts, maybe the boundary parts of the forest, so that people aren't tempted to cut down the remainder of the forest. You see that a little bit in this picture. So on this side, this is the part that was, if you like, not accessible during the time when there was a civil war. Other parts are already very much more deforested, as you can see here. So the intent is to work particularly in those boundary zones to have, higher productivity, sustainable agriculture activities to avoid the remainder of the Amazon being deforested. And we do things there then like having financial instruments that can come up with sustainable, productive transformations in these areas. Now, I won't have time in my notes here to go into detail here, but we have Luis Miguel here, for instance, one of our team members, that if you want to talk about things like this, he can tell you a lot more. And frankly, these are also the kind of things that we'd like to explore more in collaboration with AFoCO and AFoCO members. In Indonesia, we work a lot more with peat landscapes, for instance, helping to redevelop or help to redevelop degraded peat landscapes, stop the burning through a series of activities. We don't have that much time to explain them here, but we think there are a number of, value chains often that can be developed that can come up with reasonably high value products that stop people from degrading the landscapes further. More you see here. So specific things we've done then is from background studies for the national government, going down to specific emission reduction programs for a province, Kalimantan, which in the end yield $100 million from the FCPF carbon fund if Indonesia manages to implement such a program. So there are international sources of finance, if you like, that can help governments implement those reforestation programs or avoided deforestation. Similar to activities that are all put together in these roadmaps for NDC implementation. I guess most of you are working on similar issues in your countries. RED Plus is of course a key part that we work on as well. We work a lot with Norway. Norway is quite happy to promise large amounts of money to countries if they're able to implement those programs, which is often a challenge. So we work with countries like Indonesia or Colombia to help them deliver on those promises to Norway so that those payments start to flow to the countries. I have this one slide for Ethiopia up because it talks more about the kind of supply chains that we think are often critical to delivering higher values. And it's also a link to the kind of things we might be able to do together in the Mekong. Finally, closer to home, in Myanmar, we've just started to work, but particularly in the Ayeyarwady Delta, we're initiating work on mangrove restoration. Just to give you one slide on some things that where AFoCO has been very active as well, of course. I think my time is close to up, so we'll go to my last slide, where my colleague Luis Miguel has been developing ideas together with some of the AFoCO members in the Mekong to think through a way where we could help accelerate landscape restoration, particularly through public-private partnerships. This is only a teaser. Luis Miguel is going to be on the panel a little bit later this afternoon, and he can tell you a little bit more about this proposed project. So overall, I'd like to say we are an intergovernmental organization, a bit like AFoCO. We're also quite recent. We're also set up with strong support from Korea. I think we're just a little bit ahead of the curve from AFoCO. We have developed quite rapidly in the last 6 years. We do other work as well, but our sustainable landscape work focuses both on policies, national and subnational level, and on mobilizing green and climate finance. We're hoping that we find ways and means to work together and hopefully set up some effective cooperation between AFoCO and AFoCO members, GGGI members, and GGGI. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joan Park, and I work for AFoCO as a program officer for planning and coordination. And today I take a great privilege of introducing AFoCO strategic plan on behalf of AFoCO at this very significant occasion to look back on our past achievement and discuss the way forward. As you all know, AFoCO is an international organization that aims to strengthen regional forest cooperation in Asian region. And it was at the 2009 ASEAN RK Commemorative Summit where the initial idea of AFoCO was shared among 10 ASEAN member states and the RK. And through a 10-year-long journey of establishing AFoCO, it was officially formalized last year on 27th April. And this is a vision that we shared with the Asian country who joined to a dialogue meeting to establish AFoCO in earlier time. We aspire to promote sustainable development for greener Asia through forest-based interventions that include sustainable forest management and biodiversity conservation, forest-based climate change mitigation and adaptation, reduce forest deforestation, desertification, and forest-related disasters, and building capacity of forest human resources. And these 14 Asian countries are the pioneers who committed their contributions towards the vision of greener Asia. And currently, 8 among those 14 are participating as parties, and the other 6 are holding the observer status to proceed with signing and ratification process to become a party member. To move a step towards the vision of greener Asia, AFoCO adopted the first ever strategic plan at the last inaugural session of the Assembly in 2018. Through a collaborative analytical study of the internal factor and external factors of AFoCO, the strategic plan identified 5 strategic priority areas to contribute to global goals such as Sustainable Development Goal, SDG, UN Strategic Plan for Forests, and Paris Agreement by supporting individual countries' efforts towards these goals. And these are what 5 strategic priority areas are, and I will walk you through the details of each area in the following slides. The first priority area, though it is not the first important thing, but it is only the order. The first priority area is initiating customized restoration and reforestation models. And under this priority area, we would like to establish a locally customized restoration and reforestation models in target communities. And we also would like to adopt and apply such models in a balanced and integrated approaches to forest landscape restoration for the benefit of the target communities. In strategic priority area number 2 is supporting research and development in climate change adaptation approaches. This supports the implementation of scientific studies on forestry adaptation approaches, and also we promote the policy adaptation by the vulnerable member countries to apply relevant adaptation methodologies and approaches. We have relatively a small number of projects going on at the moment, but we hope that we can develop much more projects in the future. In priority area number 3 indicates the introducing systematic management of forest-related disasters. And under this area, we'd like to establish a demonstration sites for control and management of forest-related disasters, and would like to apply the technology-based preventive and control measures where appropriate. And strategic priority number 4 indicates local livelihood improvement and community-based small enterprise development. And in this area, we'd like to identify and implement the best practices on payments for ecosystem services ecotourism and community-based enterprise development in target areas. And we also would like to promote the relevant policy adoption by the parties. And finally, the priority area number 5 is to strengthen institutional capabilities, diversifying resources, and promoting regional actions. For this priority area, for the achievement of this priority area, we have identified 5 other areas to target, sub-areas to target. And the first one is engagement in the global forest policy processes. This is to deliver the regional actions, to implement the regional actions based on the regional interests that we form together with the party members. And the second one is the technical cooperation, and we are trying to develop the partnership for transferring advanced technology and sharing best practices in partnership with the other international organizations working in the forest field, such as ITTO, RECOV, and also the local agencies in our member countries. The third area is to diversifying the resource mobilization. And we are in the middle of the process of applying the GCF accreditation to facilitate the channeling of the climate funds to the forest related activities. As well as we are, and also we are trying to apply for the OECD top list for ODA eligible international organization, so that we can also utilize the ODA funds from the advanced economy to support our member countries' development through the forest-based actions. And we are also trying to develop the cross-sectoral activities with other agencies such as the GGGI to broaden our scopes, broaden the forestry activities beyond the forestry sectors. Also, we are also trying to strengthening our institutional framework by developing practical internal policies and guidelines that will help efficient operation of the organization. So this slide shows the implementation modalities of AFoCO. To materialize the vision of Greener Asia, AFoCO has been taken 3 major implementation modalities, which includes the field-based project implementation, policy and technical support, and capacity building. And in the future, perhaps, we can enhance the regional actions by participating in the international fora to deliver the regional views to international policy processes. I brought these slides to highlight the achievements from some of our capacity building programs. As you can see, the figures on the screen, AFoCO has attained quite a number of achievements in comparatively short time periods, and through the various programs, such as we organized a number of trainings and workshops, but we also had fellowship programs and scholarship programs, and we also had a eco green camp with the children with the multi-cultural family backgrounds. And of course, I think many of you already know of the RETC, which is the Regional Education and Training Center. And since its establishment in 2018, we believe that AFoCO can provide the year-round training and education programs to the region from now. So with this experience, we may consider taking this education capacity building component as one of the core building blocks to deliver impacts in the region. I saw that this has been highlighted by the presentation made by Mr. Htain Lin this morning, but I'd like to highlight once again that which approach AFoCO has been taking to deliver its impacts to the region. First one is action-oriented implementation. We promoted to implement the action on the ground by transforming the proven technology and policies into concrete actions. And second one is the regional-based partnership. And we promoted to fostering close cooperation among the parties to make joint efforts towards the common regional goal. And the third one is the country-driven project development. And this was must be the most featured part of our approaches that we promoted, engaged our country parties in developing the projects based on their own priority and needs of each country. And we think that AFoCO strategy plan needs to digest this AFoCO's approaches that we have been taken so far. So this is the work ahead. In this year, AFoCO Secretariat was tasked to develop the plan of actions to implement the strategic plan 2019 to 2023. And under this plan of action, we are planning to establish specific goals to reach in each priority area with that defined timeline. Also, we are planning to develop number of multiple sub-regional programs or specialized sets of interventions which reflect a different level of demands and circumstances. Also, we are planning to identify the technical and financial resources required to address each identified priority area, and would like to seek a partnership with the existing international organizations or the local agencies to jointly mobilize those necessary supports. And lastly, we are planning to determine the key performance indicators to evaluate the attainment and the progresses of the strategic plan. So this is the conclusion. For the vision of sustainable development for a greener Asia that we shared among our country parties, we should develop a contextualized strategy to execute the individual country-specific to implement the actions. Adapt to the individual country's specific context to better serve the member-driven approaches. And second one is to mobilize the partnerships. And we believe that this can ensure the synergies and complement the existing cooperation mechanism, which we focus in when we establish the AFoCO. And the last one, we should think about going beyond the forestry sector. So we should think about a process to take action in forestry sectors, but aiming for the impacts go beyond. Thank you very much for listening.
I want to clarify that I was upgraded in my title. I'm not a doctor, actually. I didn't do a PhD. It's very kind of you. So first of all, I want to thank very much to the organizers of AFoCO. It's been already more than a year relationship that we've been talking to each other. We were kindly invited to the inauguration when AFoCO started the implementation process. We also participated twice in the training courses organized by AFoCO, and we are looking forward to continue collaborating in this and the following years. So I will make a brief presentation here. It's more or less an overview of what GCF is about. I know many of you. It's how many friends that I know here and faces that we've been seeing each other for many occasions. But I believe there is a need to explain a bit about the GCF. What do we do and how can we collaborate in future interventions and projects. So GCF is an institution kind of new. It was officially born in 2010, but the funds were available only in 2015. So in practical terms, we have a bit of almost 4 years or less than 4 years of experience and existence in implementing projects. And the aim is no different than what was presented before in promoting this development that it not only allows economic growth, but also take into account the challenges that we're facing on climate change. So this is another concept, as Frank was explaining in his presentation. There are many concepts around, and this is probably one more, but at the end of the day, we are all aiming on the same. We're trying to continue promoting increasing the economies, improving wealth, and also social benefits, as well as taking into account a development that addresses climate change. So we have areas of priority, and from the whole funds available from the GCF, it has to be split 50-50% on mitigation and adaptation, with a priority on small island development states, developed countries, and Africa. And we can see on the other big side here on these big circles, basically the GCF addresses almost all sectors. And what is interesting about forests is that forests are not only in this box here on forest and land use, but you know much better than I do, when you do a forestry project, you are addressing as well, in some cases, food, you are addressing ecosystem services, livelihoods, eventually energy, if the food, if the timber or the trees are protected to supply fuel wood. So forests cover many of the resource areas of the GCF. Okay, so how do we operate? Here's just a quick sample. So GCF operates through partners, and these partners are agencies that are accredited to the GCF. So I congratulate AFoCO, who is applying to the accreditation process to the GCF, and with some patience, we hope to have AFoCO also as part of our accredited entities. So these entities are the ones that receive the funds from the GCF, and they will implement the projects in the countries. Okay? And there are different types of agencies depending on their capacities and type of projects. So an entity can have can be from a country, that is called a direct access entity, which is an institution or organization that belongs to a specific country. There are also regional. There are institutions and that represent a group of countries, and there are international, not like the UN agencies and multilateral banks. And also depends on the capacity to manage funds. So there are the micro projects are up to $10 million. So there are agencies that, based on their track record, they can only manage up to $10 million projects. But there are other organizations that can manage more than $250 million. And that defines also what kind of projects can be presented to the GCF, depending on which organizations are presenting the proposal. And what does GCF provide? Well, basically provides funds across all the value chain on what is needed to implement a project on the ground. Starting from the readiness stage, that it's a funding that allows countries to prepare the enabling conditions, that will allow the country to prepare, to engage with the stakeholders, and to prepare a pipeline of investments. In most cases, what we're seeing in these recent 2 years, is that countries are using this readiness funding to materialize to narrow down their NDCs into concrete investment plans, which is very interesting. Before, this was more used to set the stage, but now we're going a step forward, and countries are looking for readiness funding to implement their NDCs. There is a preparation facility program where, in order to prepare a project, you know very well you need funding. Okay? And this support provides up to $1.5 million per proposal in order to prepare your project that you can submit to the GCF. Then we have the funding proposals. It's a regular call for proposals. It's an on-rolling basis. The board of the GCF meets 3 times a year, and at every board meeting they will consider proposals. And requests for proposals are more specific, targeted type of interventions. Probably some of you know, but we have a request for proposals for RED+, and I will explain a little bit later. So this is how we operate, and we have here the stakeholders on the ground. Like, for example, some of the proposals that you presented in the morning, they can start as a initial stage to originate a proposal to the GCF. Then, once the project is designed, it goes through these accredited entities, and they submit the project to the Secretariat. And here we do an assessment, a review of the proposal, until the proposal is in a good shape to be submitted to the board of the fund. And once the board approves, then the funds are channeled and executed. Okay? So far we have more than 100 projects approved. That it's around $5 billion have been committed. And the total capitalization of the fund was a pledge of 10 billion, out of which 7 billion were materialized, and 5 billion have been already committed. And now talking on land use more specifically, this is an overview of forest and land use projects that were approved over the last 3.5 years. As you can see here, in the Asia region, there are not as many as we would like to see. There are still quite few. Most of the projects have been in Africa and Latin America, but the Asia region still needs to be more proactive in bringing projects to the GCF. So what do we look for? What kind of projects we want to see? It's not different from what you have been already talking before. It's the same, and we see there was a mention on landscape approach in many presentations in the morning. It's the same. We need to, I think that it's already clear at this stage that the problem with the forest is not inside the forest, it's outside the forest. So we need to see how to articulate different interventions in different types of spaces, and make sure that there is a functional process that maintains the ecosystem and ecological process in a specific area, but also at a larger scale within the country. For the GCF, it's critical to have a clear linkage with climate change. It's a climate fund. And that's a challenge sometimes to demonstrate, particularly when we think on adaptation projects. Adaptation projects need to demonstrate what are we adapting to. And sometimes there's not much information in the countries to demonstrate that there is a problem that has been caused because of climate change, and the interventions that we're proposing are actually addressing that. And for that, in some cases, you need large information that is not always available. However, that's the reason of this fund. And also, of course, mitigation projects like RED+ are one of our key areas. We have seen that there is a need, looking into the landscape, we need to ensure that coordination and coherence with other sectors as well. In some cases, in many countries, you have one sector, let's say agriculture, with their policy to expand agriculture because that's the mandate. And then you have the Ministry of Environment trying to protect the forest. And that makes challenging. If you are trying to develop these long-term sustainable pathways, you need to agree and make sure that these are very well coordinated. Also, what is important is to think, how can we make these scarce resources sustainable? How can we leverage additional funding? How can we trigger or unlock barriers that allow private sector funding to come in? How can, in many cases, in many countries, it's not necessarily a lack of funding, it's lack of identifying the priorities. And there are in some cases there are barriers to execute its own funding from the countries because there are not enough capacities at the moment in order to execute public funding. So how can we use these kind of resources that are from institutions like the GCF to unlock those barriers? And we need to innovate. I think that in land use sector at least, it's been more than 80 years perhaps of interventions on how to address these complex problems on the land. And we need to find faster ways now. We are running against the time. When you look at the climate change projections, by 2030, if we haven't restored, at least we have to sequester 50 billion tons from the atmosphere, which is basically reforesting all the available lands, including even land that is for production of food. And we have to do it in how much time it takes for a tree to grow? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? And we are 2030 in 10 years. How can you make a tree grow 10 years from now? So we need to find a way to come up with innovative solutions to address climate change. Now this is, I will not repeat much, just looking into the landscape approach of more integrated interventions. And this is a concept that you are most likely very familiar with, the REDD+, reducing emission from deforestation and degradation. And just to mention that the GCF has different instruments that can support all the phases of REDD+, from the preparation stage, let's say phase 1, to results-based payments. And on results-based payments, we have recently, well, not so recently, the board approved a $500 million pilot program for results-based payments. And the last board meeting, GCF already paid to Brazil $100 million. And let me show you another map here. And here we can see how our country is progressing to implement the REDD+ processes. And this is a survey we are still processing. We assessed 60 countries. And you can see here, the darker color means that the countries are at a more advanced stage of implementing the REDD+ strategies and actions. And they are close to receive payments from the results they have achieved. Brazil already received its payments. This is not complete. You can see following are probably in Latin America, Mexico, Chile, Ecuador. And here in Asia, it's very interesting to see that countries are also very well advanced. We see Indonesia well advanced, Vietnam. Still, this is a not complete survey. This has been updated until Friday, but we're receiving more responses from many countries. And you see that in Africa, they're still they're in an earlier stage of implementation. So with that, I wanted to also indicate, well, GCF is, as I mentioned, provides funding for all the phases of REDD+, and we are looking to, not to displace, I mean, actually, we want to coordinate better with the other sources of funding that are available and to make it more efficient use and less transactions for the countries to access to funding. So just to give you an idea of what kind of projects we have funded. This is the first project that GCF funded in 2015. This is the proposal number 1. And this is a project that happened in Peru. And it's a very nice proposal. It's relatively small for the type of project that GCF funds. This is almost a $10 million project, out of which GCF funded $6 million. And there was COICA also provided funding to this project. And the idea here is to support indigenous communities to manage their fruits, the forest fruits, and sell it to a market that is just starting. What is interesting is that after we started this project, a private company got interested, and now they launched this year a small use, like the bottles of water that you have, that is going to be exported. So they will be purchasing all the products from these indigenous communities who are able to manage their land in a more efficient way, and it makes a very sustainable project. Before this project, this area had, the Ministry of Agriculture of Peru had an intention, or at least a map, indicating that it has potential for palm oil. So if you don't give alternative, or you don't recognize the value of the forest, then it turns into something else. So this is what this project is trying to achieve. Another example is this REDD+ project in Ecuador. which is very interesting. This was the opening was at a very high political level. There was the president and 4 ministers inaugurating this project. And it has many components. It's an entire country. But one of the components that I like is a kind of incentive-based mechanism for cattle producers when they have to move from extensive cattle production to more intensive but with trees, silvopastures. There is a cost, and the cattle producers reduce their income. In this case, there's a subsidy that allows the cattle producers to transition from unsustainable cattle to more sustainable cattle production by including trees into their land. There are many other interventions, but that was one of that I like. In Morocco, we had this very nice project. How many of you know argan oil? Yes, there's a, because this is used for cosmetics. Argan oil has been a product that has had so much demand for cosmetic industry that what it has caused is that there has been an over collection of the seeds. And the over collection of the seeds didn't allow the forest to regrow because there was no regeneration. In addition to that, in this region in Morocco, it's an endemic tree. It only grows in this area. In addition to that, the people who increased their economies by selling those seeds, they bought goats, because that is a sign of social status. The more goats you have, you're in a more a higher social status. But those goats also, they start eating the argan trees, so it became a loop of a problem. So what we are doing with this project is 2 things. One is, for the first time, we are going to try pilot plantations of argan trees, because before it was only harvesting from natural forest, and the pressure of forest increased. But now this is a plantation proposal. They will do a plantation of argan trees, but also that you will restore the natural ecosystems in argan. And everything is managed by women. It's a very interesting project, that this is all the process is managed by women. And this is an interesting project in Madagascar, just very quick. What is interesting about it is the financial structure, because what it does is creating like a basket of different financial options for private sector to engage. There's energy and agriculture, but also conservation. If we have conservation as a selling point to private sector, it doesn't sell. Because conservation, the truth at the moment, it doesn't pay, because it's not properly valued in our economy. But when you put conservation in a basket of other investments, energy, agriculture, that they do profit and they are more attractive to private sector, then you can share the profits among these different interventions. And this is what's the structure here. And because of that, there are now additional funding coming from private sector for conservation. And this is the last one, and I think it's going to be an interesting switch to the next presentation. It's a project that I like very much. It's Bhutan for Life. It's a concept that has been already applied in other countries. And what is interesting here is that the country committed to protect 50% of the country in protected areas, and there will be more extended explanation in the next presentation. But the interesting part here is the financial model. It's a performance-based incentive where contributions from DCF and other donors will provide funding to do the conservation of the protected areas over a period of 14 years. But every year, when there's a contribution from DCF, there needs to be an additional contribution from the government. And over time, when the funds from the DCF and other sources finish, the contribution from the other, from the domestic and other sources will have to increase. When everything is finished, it can be managed by its own resources. And with that, I want to thank again to the organizers and look forward to hear the next presentation. Thank you very much.
So, Bhutan, we have around 71% of the forest, 71% of the geographical area on the cover. So, but do not look at the absolute figures, look at in the percentage. So now, with this, as of today, our first round of national forest inventory stands completed, and then we have been able to tell the world that we have almost around 709 million tons of carbon. Then, as of today, we have a carbon sequestration capacity of 9.43 million tons. So that's what we have just released that figures, and then we are going to go into the second phase of our national forest inventory. How we do the business on forestry in Bhutan is we manage through many forest management regimes. So this is one of the forest area that is totally almost that just now my colleague, the other GCF mentioned that we committed to retain 51.44% of the forest under the protected area. So that means there would be no commercial harvesting, but people who resides in that area. And Bhutan has a peculiar system, like people in the rural areas, they have the rights over the timber, and so that that's meant for the construction of houses. But then outside that, we have forest management units, and then one peculiar thing here in Bhutan is unlike in so many parts of the world, almost all these protected areas are in isolation. So in Bhutan, we have already declared this gift to earth, and all these lines are the connecting areas from one park to another park. And then maybe in the Asians, we are the only one we do these scientific operations in the forest management units. We have a plan of 10 years management plan, and then every year there's a operational plan prepared, and then we do this scientific management plans, openings, harvesting through the cable lines. This is the cable line that runs through, and then the cable line openings are just 4 meters wide, and then we have just a group opening of 0.2 hectares. So it might run to around 3 to 4 group openings within the cable corridor. It's a very scientific management, and then we use the loaders for loading and unloading the logs. Then, as I was very well saying that the 51.44% is totally declared as protected areas, and that within that we have 21% of the forest cover there in that protected area, and then the protected area consists of national parks, sanctuaries, strict nature reserves, biological corridors, and then outside these protected areas, then we have these forest management units. That's where the commercial harvesting, extraction takes place. And then we have, as of today, we have around 20 FMUs in Bhutan. And then we have community forestry. Community forestry is just gaining popularity in Bhutan. We were there in 1990s. We started from 1. As of today, we have almost reaching to 800 community forests. And then of the late, we have heritage forests coming up, and so maybe around 5 to 6 heritage forests has been declared. Then what are the challenges actually? We have challenges in forest deforestation and forest regulation. One of the driving is the hydropower, but in the hydropower we have plugged these transmission lines. So we have just done a study on the forest cover loss from the hydropower. As such, since our hydropower is on the runoff river, and they are developed on the deep gorges, so there's not much of forest cover loss. But it's the transmission line, the distribution in energies going all the way up to the Indian border. That is, today we have realized that that is the driving factor for this forest deforestation. As we have come up with community forestry, this is just a fairly new idea. The community forestry capacity is so much of input into their capacity, and people are not able to prepare plans for that. Even the community forestry, they are required to have a plan which they are not very educated, or there's more capacity on that. Then as I did not actually mention, we have 60% of the forests under broadleaf forest, and then almost 30% under the conifer forest. Then around 10% broad conifer and broadleaf mix. Well, as of today, the demand is more on the conifer species. The timber, like the hardwood species, broadleaf species, finds nothing but as a fire fuel. So that's the dilemma that we are in. We have high forest, broadleaf forest cover. The demand is more on the conifer. Then the forest for mitigation and climate change. So yes, we have pledged, the Bhutan has pledged to remain, one of our NDC we pledged to remain as a carbon neutral, but it's a huge cost that we have to maintain this. Today we are totally carbon negative, but since come next 2 years or so, the Bhutan is going to graduate from this LDC and go into this economic transition. So then it will be difficult to maintain that 71% of the forest cover that is there. So then the climate change, the vulnerability, one of the economic drivers, the economic resources that we have is the hydropower. They are almost around 40% are fed by the glaciers. So come this climate change, the glaciers have been receding, there's been melting of glaciers, and then we see frequent forest fires coming up. So these are the challenges that as a we need to think of how we could look it into the future. Then what AFoCO as an international, as an regional institution could do is like stock taking. What are the weaknesses? What are the good practices? I have just heard that today. Heard that Vietnam has a very good system of forest payment for forest ecosystem services. So then maybe these are the aspect. There could be certain other countries where they could, maybe Bhutan could be one area we could showcase how the sustainable forests could be practiced. So maybe an AFoCO could take stock of what are the strengths and the weaknesses of these members. And the second is helping secure the funds. So yes, they have come up with their own strategy document. So how could the AFoCO strengthen their strengthen them and then secure funds for those countries? So encourage members to develop proposal on the assured funds. So one of the problem that Bhutan we faced was we submitted our projects. It was reviewed by the AFoCO. There was so much of like going back and forth on the project proposal, and then we advised our government saying that okay, the AFoCO, through AFoCO we are going to get this project through. And then today we have to report to our government because it so happened that this time our 5-year plan started from this year. So suddenly when we are taking stock of the funds available for the 5-year plan project, then we couldn't get that. So maybe that is what Bhutan feels. If you could build on to the assured funds that is committed to AFoCO, from there these projects could be developed rather than having to prepare the projects and then finally say that oh, that donor is not willing to take your project proposal. That was one. And then maybe there's a very good training program happening in the regional training center in Myanmar, which my colleagues from the department have been. This is the third. Some are still there undergoing this course. So this is one of the good initiatives. But we think that it could be much more better if consultations can be made from the countries and see how it could be taken forward. Maybe get some resources from those member countries even and say how they have been doing it and how in future could be done but better. Then should be seen by the international organization as one of the leaders in the greening of Asia. So yes, AFoCO is quite a young organization, but on the future, I think we have ways to move ahead. And then just recently, just before coming, I met some of the World Bank officials, and then they were even interested in working with the AFoCO. So maybe that is one step. Like I'm sure that sooner or later we get the AFoCO gets accredited to the GCF. Like Bhutan has already supported on that front. And linking of the members to the other institutions, it doesn't mean that AFoCO has to do it, but maybe you could link to, like we in Bhutan, we are going to go through this second phase of National Forest Inventory. So we are a little bit, we felt that it would be similar, the exercise would be similar to the first. Then we realized that there are certain plots which we may not be able to access there. Or there could be some plots which was not available in the first NFI. Then we would be we could do that. But how do you go about doing this? It's one area that we are looking at. And the second is, ours is not actually basically a national forest, it's a resource inventory. So we do a carbon analysis even. So from the plots, just within 5 years ago, we did a destructive sampling and we have collected all the herbs, shells, everything from the floor. If you have to go back and do it on the same place, then our carbon maybe then we could be interpreting a different results. So we are still thinking of opening up. Maybe the AFoCO could help us to link with those institutions like the KFS or certain even the member countries who have such experience on doing that. These are some of the issues that we see the AFoCO could help us through. Thank you, everyone. That's my last presentation, and hope I could small views from Bhutan. Thank you.
Thank you. As already introduced, my name is Phouthone, which is planning cooperation investment for employment for three countries. My presentation today will focus on the needs from Lao PDR, what kinds of projects that Lao will be needing in order to help ourselves to make Laos green, and what kinds of expectation we expect from AFoCO as a member to help Laos to make that green. So before I go to the point, I would like to share with you some background information. Next, please. In order for you to understand Laos context, what kinds of potential, what constraint we might have in order to proceed to make Laos green. So firstly, I would like to share with you some good information about biophysical, and then I would like to share with you the importance of Laos forest for the countries, for the regions, and also for Asia. And then I will move on to what kinds of policy we have, what kind of strategy take a target we intend to achieve, and then what kinds of strategic measure we apply at the moment, and then I will move to what kind of assistance we require from AFoCO. Next, please. In Laos, actually, it's not a priority to AFoCO yet, but we want to make it soon. So we intend to make it happening in the near future, maybe next 2 months, just for your information. Geographically, Laos is located in the Myanmar biodiversity hotspot. So it's quite diverse in terms of biodiversity. We have a number of endemic wildlife species, as you can see on the screen. So the land area of Laos is about 23.7 million hectares, with a total population of about 7 million people, of which 55.6 live in the urban areas, and 70% of the are independent on forest resources. So forests are important for livelihood, also for economic development in the country. So the current forest area of Laos is been estimated by FAO in 2015 that Laos should have had 18.7 million hectares. So that's equivalent to 82% of forest cover. That is according to FAO's information data. But we have estimated ourselves that our forest is covering about 58%. It's about 14 million hectares now. So as you can, that's the kinds of figure I would like for you to see how position of Laos in terms of forest share with the regions. So in terms of forest area, we could be ranked 5th, but in terms of forest cover, we're quite advanced. Thanks. Through Mekong basins, we contribute quite a lot. We contribute around 25% in terms of catchment, in terms of area, 25% in terms of forest area, and about 35% we contribute to annual discharge water discharge to the Mekong River. So it allows forest plays a very critical role for sustainable economic development, for watershed management, for ecosystem service, and also poverty eradication of reduction while contributing to combating climate change. So our forests play quite a number of roles for the country and also for the regions. So as the rainforest, forest sustainable forest management and landscape forest restoration is the current top policies for us at the moment. So from the picture on the screen, you can see how much Laos contribute to Mekong basins. Next, please. Now I would like to share with you some policy related to forestry in our countries. Laos, at the moment, we try to reform the policy to transform ourselves from the national-based economic development to kinds of a country into an upper middle income country with innovative green and sustainable economic growth. So we're going on the path of the green growth. So in order to do so, we have to shift forward our forest policy. We have to adjust our forest policy a little bit. So moving ahead to new green forest economy. So learning from the past experience, quite bad experience we have is we have used a lot of forest resources, and we face a number of disasters, a number of programs. So we learn from that and we change our forest policy. So we change the policy to support green growth, while also support poverty eradication to enhance for ecosystem services and while combating climate change. In order to do so, we have set kinds of strategic targets. So by 2020, we want to increase our forest cover up to 70% from 58 to 70%. In order to do so, we have to restore some 3 million hectares of degraded forest. That kind of area needs to be restored in order to come up with 70%. And by doing so, we also want to manage our existing forests in a sustainable manner with participation of local people and communities. By having 24 NPCAs, NPAs in the country, we would like to make more use of them. We would like to turn from the NPA management into national park management, linking this into ecotourism and by also having taken account poverty eradication. Another measure we will be applying is to protect our current forests, especially forest fire. Next, please. So in order to have the policy objective and strategic targets and measures, to make it materialize, we have currently we've done a number of things. Especially, we try to combat logging by banning export of timber and unfinished forest products, by also banning the logging in the country. Logging is only on the conversion area. We also are improving and enabling environment for promoting forest restoration and investment in the tree plantation. We have amended our law. We improve a number of regulations in order to encourage investment in the country, in forest plantation and also restoration. At the same time, we also employing REDD+ for compromising the need for sustainable forest management, restoration, poverty reduction, and combating climate change. There are kinds of gaps. These three components need to be compromised. And forest degradation normally linked to poverty. So in order to have it, to solve the problem, we have to think about people. We have to solve the problem of the people rather than the problem itself. And then we would like to upgrade our NPA International Park. Up to date, we have upgraded 2 of the 24 to become national park. I have heard from Bhutan. Bhutan have had very good experiences. I just heard from the last presentation. We would like to learn from Bhutan how to make it happen. So we also have to make money in order to ensure that we can manage our forest. Next, please. So what kinds of project you might need from AFoCO to help? Having AFoCO as an intergovernmental organization. Firstly, we would like to develop a national program for forest restoration. We should have the national program in order to integrate our strategy into program and then projects. We need a program to make it place. And then we also like to scale up the current project and the landmark program. We call it village-driven, not village-based, driven. Everything should be guided by villages. Village-driven forest restoration project implemented in 2 districts at the moment. This project has been recognized as very successful by National Assembly. So we should continue the approach. And then we also intend to implement a REDD strategy, REDD program. We have submitted our proposal to TCF. Hopefully we are waiting for good news in order to have funding support for implementing our REDD strategy and program. So what could be linked to forest restoration and poverty eradication as well? And then the last project that we may need help is to make our efforts to turn national NPA into national park by linking them with PFAS and also ecotourism and investment. Next, please. Expectation from AFoCO. So we would like AFoCO to recognize what we need. Our policy need, not individual, for individual, but in the policy, it's a context. And then incorporate our policy need into AFoCO strategy. So AFoCO find a way out to help Lao, to make Lao green. And then we would like also to AFoCO to secure or help us to get access to funding support to implement our program. But we also request AFoCO to continue support on capacity development, not only human resources but also institutional development. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
What exactly are we going to discuss here? Because everything was presented this morning and afternoon was very clear. It was very nicely done, and everyone is appreciative. But nevertheless, when you talk of future of AFoCO, working in the secretary, I would see there is a bright future. Not necessarily I think our colleagues will here agree also. But given the scenario or given the trend that is developing within the region, particularly with this environment degradation, climate change impacts, we are quite concerned. And we need to do something. And therefore, here we are here listening to from our member countries the achievements that have successfully they have demonstrated to us and shared. That was wonderful. But today we have here 4 panelists, and I would say that I'm not going to go in a sequential, and I'm also going to say that if you talk too long, I'll come in between and say, okay, probably we need to switch. That may be to start with. But first, let me start with our Htain Lin. Since he has worked with AFoCO for many years, and he has also worked on the country level, for many years. So he has really a good understanding of connecting from ground, village level to the policy, to the instrument level. So here is the situation, and I want to hear from you. You did raise saying that at the country level, bureaucratic, secretariat level, bureaucrats, how, as we move forward in the future, would you advise us to, these are the areas we need to focus, and these are the areas continues to focus. How do you see that we moving forward as we talk about the future of AFoCO? Thank you.
Mr. Chencho, I think your question is related to what I discussed earlier before lunch. Yes, it was very clear, based on my experience, it was very clear that there is a certain time needed in terms of AFoCO approval process. And also there is quite a time needed for the country level. Even after approval by AFoCO, there is a time needed for each country. It depends also on the country's bureaucratic system. So what I like to suggest is for the Secretariat to explore a bit in close consultation with the focal point of the country, how to simplify the official process. Some country, for example, needs to start their domestic process only after assembly has approved, for example. But some country may not need that. Once they get a kind of indication that, some kind of official indication from the Secretariat that this project is about to be approved, for example, then they can start the domestic process. So what I'm saying is the countries' need on the domestic process are different. And some countries are quite, when I look at some countries, some are very simplified. So in terms of financial control and management, some countries allow that particular agency, government agency, to open their account and run the project. But for some countries, they don't allow like that. The budget has to go to their main, for example, Ministry of Finance system.
Yeah, okay. So you are suggesting to us that we have a project manual with us approved by the Assembly. We need to revisit that.
That is what I'm suggesting.
So, that is something, a message that we like to take note, because we fully agree that each country has its own unique way of managing internally. So this is one window that probably we like to look at it from the project manual perspective, which I am sure is one of our agenda when we take it tomorrow, I think. So thank you. I'll come back to you. Now, let me actually come here, Louis, who is very close to me. And through your DG's presentation, there is a lot of opportunity for AFoCO and GGGI to collaborate. And we also know that we are trying to work on some MOUs. So from your own experience and from GGS, which are the avenues or the strength that you can see within the AFoCO and you have within the GGI that will be very good for us to explore and to take this on them?
Sure. Thank you for having me in the panel today. Well, I see many aspects in which the missions and the institutional roles of both GGI and AFoCO coincide. Looking at the presentations this morning and this afternoon about the strategic priority ideas, I think we both coincide in the need for improvement of livelihoods, involvement of community-based enterprises, ecotourism, payment for environmental services, and also I would like to stress the need for technical cooperation and cross-sectoral approaches. Very often when working with different countries, not only in Asia, but in different geographic contexts, what we see is, from my experience working in GGGI and before, is that many times different agencies come and approach the countries with the same product or the same concept, with a slightly different angle. But there's quite often duplication and duplicity of functions. And sometimes the countries themselves don't invest a little time and effort in doing a proper mapping of who is doing what, just to ensure that there is effective collaboration. I think that is something that we all should be working a little bit more.
And in your presentation, one of the highlights that clearly showed is that the countries from Africa, Latin America, they are very active in seeking the financing from the GCF. From the Asia Pacific, we are rather weak, and either we are weak, either we are slow, or we do not know. Something must be wrong. So, in your sense, how can our member countries probably say AFoCO can come in between? Let me put it this way: to really, enhance this, accessing the fund through a regional partnership or through country-driven projects. How do you see in the future as we move forward?
When I see this discussion here and the setting and how you have organized this session, to me what the message here is strengthening collaboration. And it's not only from institutions or different actors here. We have participants from representing countries, we have participants representing capacity building providers, like AFoCO, 3GI, funding sources. We don't have many, probably we do have, but not very active, probably private sector that we need. So collaboration is one. Now, within the countries also, what we identify in the GCF, we have too many different contact points to discuss. The natural partner to the GCF in most cases is the Ministries of Finance. And in the countries, the Ministries of Agriculture and Finance are not necessarily sharing the same priorities. So I think that AFoCO has a key role here to play to make those connections in bringing not only at the country level different actors, but also establishing these partnerships and collaboration between different sources of funding and putting them all together. What happens is that, as you said, it is sometimes lack of access to the information. GCF, we have not made much effort, and we don't have the capacity neither to do what AFoCO is doing. AFoCO has been more flexible and has much more capacity to go directly to the countries and discuss. In the GCF, we are 2 steps behind. We depend on intermediaries, talk to the countries. So I think that can be one of the important roles in this area.
Young University. Now we have this regional training center, the institute that has been now fairly new, but yet to be recognized. And I also know that with your help, AFoCO is working towards some sort of a program for the member countries. can you tell us how effectively can we engage our member countries and of course observers too in the process that what we are developing towards this capacity that we're going to enhance among the member countries?
Thank you for nice introduction. I'm Htain Lin from Mangrove University. First of all, I would like to congratulate to establish AFoCO RTC, Regional Education and Training Center. As you know, capacity building is one of the most important roles of AFoCO, and the key part is to provide relevant education and training program to local communities and even policymakers in each countries. But one thing important is basically so far the capacity building programs to focus on sharing our previous experiences, our previous knowledge, based on again our experiences. But the important thing is our current environment is changing. People are changing, so every circumstances are changing, but we still stick on previous knowledges. So maybe for going forward, we have to add something in our training program in order for participants to apply their knowledge to develop kind of new knowledge or project for changing their given environment. So just providing knowledge is not enough. We have to provide some ability to some program to improve their ability to apply their knowledge, and even we have to provide some new program or some new courses that are demanded these days. So so far participants just got training courses that are given, but later maybe they actively ask some demanded program or courses to AFoCO RTC, then maybe AFoCO RTC can be a place or a platform to communicate with each country's demand for addressing each country's demand, and also emerging issues, to address emerging issues in each country's for deforestation or for forest disasters or for climate change issues. So we may develop some active role of AFoCO RTC.
Thank you. I'll now go to GCF. Now, AFoCO has actually applied for accreditation, and I want to inform the floor here. Bhutan was the first country to say that we, recommend AFoCO to be one of those, accessing that fund. So we are very happy for particularly leadership by our new director, Lobzang. So thank you for that. Now, when we talk about the accreditation, particularly, you know very well this AFoCO is not really engaging into some sort of a brown activities or development activities. We are all there to greening the Asia. And particularly the requirement, such as environment safeguard and those things. I see that probably such kind of, not really as an organization, organizations involved in such activities, do you really need to get all this process being followed through? Or are there some exceptions that you can make saying that such organizations are for the group of countries who are so vulnerable to the climate change, and also this means well for greening? How do you look at in the GCF actually fund particularly, or rather how can we speed up this accessing the accreditation?
Okay, so there are two ways to access to the GCF funding. One is getting accredited, and the other one is participating as an executing entity. Now, the business model of the GCF goes through the accreditation with the expectation that the accredited entities are the extension of the GCF, because they will be implemented, and we need to transfer and rely on their capacities to do proper implementation of the projects, to have the corresponding safeguards in place, to have the fiduciary management capacities. So that's the accreditation process, is entrusting the agencies to be capable to manage the funds on behalf of the GCF. Okay? So that's why the process is maybe exhausting in that sense, but needed in order to make sure that the policies that are being approved by the board are implemented by the states. So on that, first of all, I want to congratulate AFoCO for starting the process and being interested. And I hope that the process goes fast and smooth. Be patient. There are at least 250 agencies in the list, and so far there are 84 accredited. And every board meeting there is around 10 that are considered by the board. So you can imagine that it's a long queue. But being part of the executing entity is also another aspect, as I said. So here I can see many opportunities that in the process of going through the accreditation, we can already start imagining, thinking, designing ideas that involve a component of capacity building as part of a project executed by any other agency that is already accredited.
Yes, just a follow-up. Now, each member country has submitted this NGC, to the UNFCCC, and in that NGC, every member country requires a capacity building, particularly in the area of mitigation, adaptation. Those elements are very clearly reflected, which means it's about the capacity building of on the technical front, and the capacity building in reporting front, because you are required to prepare a report and submit after every 5 years. Now, from the GCF's experience, can AFoCO play a role here? Even if you are not accredited, how are there any possibilities that, okay, we approach through the members, we approach GCF, saying these are the member countries who are interested in the AFoCO can lead in this one, given our institute being in RATC?
Yeah, so again, there are two aspects here. One is the readiness stage for which that capacity building can be considered. GCF provides funding up to $1 million per year per country to do readiness activities that are capacity building. And the other are the investments, the funding proposals for which accreditation is needed. And for the investments, we need to measure in tons of CO2 or number of people that have been enhanced their resilience capacity. So capacity building per se is not a project for the GCF. And it's like Professor Johan was saying, it's not only the capacity building that will make the change. You need to implement action, and this is what we need to report as a success of the GCF. But, so there are two parts. One is on the readiness. Yes, it can be part, and you don't have to be accredited for receiving readiness funds. And also as part of a project in which one component can be capacity building with the intention to have concrete interventions on the ground.
Thank you. I'll go back to our friend Htain Lin. When AFoCO was put in place, the notion behind having AFoCO is to talk less, act more. That was the motive behind that. Enough talking has been done in the various conventions and meetings. Here is AFoCO that we want to act more. And we acted. And from your experience, how can we actually, enhance this, or spend less time on discussing but more on the field? What are your views on that? How you can advise from your own experience in this front?
I think this is a very interesting. So we are talking about action-oriented, talk less and then do more. I have seen today's presentation. I have one good example. Bhutan, in the Bhutan presentation, Bhutan has proposed some kind of cooperative project with Viet Nam on PFAS. This is one good example. Similarly, Lao also proposed the same idea, the name PFAS. PFAS is actually Vietnam's version of BS. So this is very effective. If this is very effective in Vietnam, and this is already proven, then why don't we have a project to directly support this kind of action in Bhutan, and I mean a kind of regional project between among the Bhutan, Laos, and the Vietnam. This is one good example. I just saw it from today's event. So there are many, so we can just explore. Also, I have seen a lot of good example on community-based forest management in Thailand. But those will be a very good example to share and then to cost-effective and more
So
action-based.
you are saying that as a presentation here by Bhutan, saying that we need to first take the stock of best practices and then probably build on that. Okay, yeah, please can you?
So actually, many countries are showing their good example. They have their strong point, and then we can make use of those strong points and share through the sharing, experience. It can be easily action-oriented program. Once, for example, Bhutan has kind of policy change and political will is there, then it is going to be implemented quickly, like Vietnam did. Vietnam did it in about 10 years' time. So they have done quite well on 10 years time. That's my point.
Thank you. I come back to Luis here. One of the strengths in GGI is you are good at really at the broad policy, formulation and direction within the country that you have been working with, and I think you have already exhibited that. Now, from the AFoCO perspective, we are actually focusing more on the, ground actions. That is, the opportunities being in Seoul together. If, like for example, GGI comes with some policy guidelines formulation, and AFoCO comes with some action, technical expertise, with the capacity that will. How do you see that future that we can launch into a big kind of a project that we can have it together?
We see that regional projects are something that makes sense. Certain regions or countries within a region share common drivers of deforestation, common drivers of degradation. So it also makes sense to have a common approach to address these drivers. So that would be the stepping point for advocating for a regional approach. But within GGGI, one of the, besides the policy strengths, one of the strengths that we have is the global investment services. And there's a team of people that are specialized in structuring businesses and making them bankable. So from the policy to the implementation of local projects to scaling up to regional scopes, we need to design carefully the financial facility, the financial vehicles in which money from corporation, from, for example, the GCF can be put in. So going and asking the GCF for hundreds of millions of dollars in grants will not be realistic. And to create something, the part that is missing, the part that is connecting the funds to the small producers, the communities that are not bankable, that are not, that they don't have the collateral, they don't have the access to the bank. Sometimes they don't even have the documents of identity. That happens in my own country. So I think there is a role there in which we could cooperate.
Can you speak a bit, elaborate on the Mekong region that you are talking about among the AFoCO and the GGI? It's the initial stage, but still I think you can share with the policy.
Thank you. Well, this proposal for the Mekong region starts from this concept of having common drivers. The proposal is initially created for Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. And it tries to put together a mechanism to incentivize PPPs and associative arrangements between Korean companies that are linked to the Korean market and and local institutions. That could be companies, NGOs, academia, and communities in associative arrangements. So it could be a community enterprise. The idea is that these elements are put together in a partnership, in a consortium, and the consortium applies through this competitive process to get support in the technical designs, which is something that AFoCO has notorious strengths, or in the bankability elements, the feasibility, pre-feasibility elements, market integration, and so that kind of support can be provided. So it's not, this is nothing new. There's competitive processes for support occur in different parts of the world, but mostly the winners of these competitive processes get awarded money, and sometimes the money doesn't reach the objective that was originally made for or put there for. So what we are proposing here, and this is open for discussion, of course, this is an initial draft, is to provide the in-kind support to fill these gaps for these partnerships to attain bankability and to attain integration to the Korean market for forest products, which is a growing market. The graphics of imports from these other countries to Korea, there's an increment in the volumes and the values that are being imported to Korea.
Thank you. I will go to our professor from Viet Nam University. Now, one of the interests that AFoCO has is how can we help the member countries to connect within their own institutes. Because, for example, if I take the example of here, Republic of Korea, when you come to convention, climate change is handled by Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And when it comes to biodiversity, I believe it is by Ministry of Environment. And when it comes to desertification, it is by Korea Forest Services. So there is a common interest, but then institutes are quite different. How possibly can you think, I mean, within even the facilities and institutes we have, can bring those institutes together to have a dialogue? Dialogue at the policy level, and dialogue at the implementation level. We don't have to talk about at the community level, because that is the place where all these conventions converge. Because when it's action, it is on the field, which is governed by the community. They have no issue actually. Whether money comes from climate change or from biodiversity, it's not an issue. But issue is at the broader level, at the institutional level. So I think in the GCF's presentation also, it's clearly said that coherence and coordination at the country level is very important. How, in your perspective, we can facilitate and assisted by the universities like yours at RETC? Thank you.
I think I remember as one presenter said that half of focus jobs done, I think. So already you established a good platform to get together and communicate and share information. I think AFoCO can be one option to come together and to talk about their interest. But the one key point is they should have common interest. Today it sounded like all participating countries are interested in financial support to develop a kind of new regional program or project. So this is a good topic to start communication. And to keep, to maintain the strong connection, I think there's a quite solid platform. I think AFoCO Secretary can do the role. Make these types of regular meeting, and before have this meeting, just a survey of what they are interested in, and if they are interested in some extra funding from GCF or GGGI, we may invite some experts from these two institutions, and we can listen how can we get this financial support. So common interest comes first, I think, and then so for that we have to keep serving and monitoring how every ASEAN countries develop their interest. And second, make a place, make a platform to communicate, such as today's meeting. And then we have to communicate and find the solutions. So as I said, I believe that half of your problem is already addressed. But the next step, maybe we have to find something specific. Not meeting is just like talking, but doing some action. We have to find some specific. So like to get financial support, what is the next step? We have to clarify it. And based on my experience, when it comes to getting extra funding, you have to provide some evidences that show you have capable to conduct the project successfully. For that, every participating countries should prove that they have good monitoring systems. But I have saw that many countries, the monitoring systems are missing in those countries. So maybe you have also think about whether you have the capability to conduct the project and also to prove the result based on a good monitoring system.
Thank you. I'm going to ask any further questions, but first I want to give an opportunity for each of the panel members, 1 minute or less, to talk. If there is any advice you want to give it to us to this floor regarding the future of AFoCO, if you have not captured in our discussion, and if you are not captured in this morning's presentations. May I start from Eagle? Please, me.
Sure. In less than 1 minute, I will just repeat a few of the words that I think are key in what we're discussing. Is cooperation, cross-sectoral integration, promotion of regional actions, and improvement of revenues.
I think you can elaborate further. If you wish, if you have, more. I think this is, putting just, points together. It's like a presentation for more information, I think.
Focusing on regional approaches, regional projects, reducing transaction costs, reducing the number of proposals that are being sent and put together, and trying to find this cross-sectoral approaches. To not focusing only on the forest management activities. We are all foresters here, I guess, and that's what we know what to do, how to do. Thinking of how the pressures are around the forest, and that would mean a cross-sectoral approach.
Thank you.
I want to stress and highlight what Mr. Lin was saying. And we have very short time to deal with a very big problem. We have very little funds available, even though it may sound a lot with different, but the truth is that when you compare what are the drivers of deforestation, the funds that are incentivizing deforestation, the private sector. In Indonesia, for example, every year the income that is received by palm oil is 19 billion. So what conservation scheme or what resource-based mechanism can you offer to counter that big pressure? So we need to be very creative here. Second point is we should not let bureaucracy win the game. We have to deal with the process. We have to deal with the accreditation. We have to deal with the GCF exhaustive process. But we should not let bureaucracy discourage us to take action. As I said, we have very little time, and we need to be very creative. We need to find solutions that are replicable. There is also, I want to also stress that it's true. We already have knowledge that we should take advantage on and replicate and scale up. We don't need to reinvent every time. When we're looking at projects at the GCF, sometimes I read projects that say, okay, but this there has been already experience in that. Why are you asking first a pilot and then 10 years later you want to? I mean, we already have many experiences in many parts of the world. Probably what we were not able was to share properly, and that's why I also stress again the role of AFoCO here. There is an opportunity that is not very common in many parts of the world to have a strong collaboration between countries. Also, what Ms. Miguel was saying in regards of sharing common problems and trying to find common solutions. I was not long ago in a mission in Laos, I was in Vietnam and Cambodia, and there was at the same time a meeting regarding illegal logging. And it was very interesting that 5 countries were discussing how to address illegal logging, because it's a problem that goes across boundaries. It's not enough for one country to put a fence and say there's no more. No, because everything happens is related to the neighboring countries. So looking into also the collaboration and finding the solutions, it makes also the investments more efficient. We're trying to make one project every country and every time, it increases transaction costs. So also thinking in regional collaboration is another scaling up approach to take.
Thank you. Professor, you have the... if you're not satisfied with what you have heard or what you have said, and still you have a space to educate and inform our colleagues here.
Thank you. So, I think today's meeting is a great opportunity for all participating countries because, as you said, you are very interested in potential financial support, especially from external sources. And for that, you have to develop some potential and also possible regional project. But sometimes when I look at your project proposal, when I have had a chance to evaluate, you have great idea, but there always you missed some important part in terms of how to prove the outcome and output of your project. So without the clear definition of your output and outcomes, it's not easy. What happens to expect what happens in 5 years, in 10 years, like that. As Mr. Lin said, I think a payment for forest ecosystem services is one good idea, but for that I also believe that good monitoring system necessary. So there should be a clear step, a clear process to get extra funding, but there are and also many potential projects opportunities available. So we may go step by step. So for that, this AFoCO can do a certain important role, and we may get together again and have another meeting to develop a project proposal, and also we have to discuss about practical tips how to get extra funding. And also we can check what are missing and what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. So for that, still I believe AFoCO Secretariat and AFoCO itself can do a great role to achieve sustainable development for a greener Asia.
Thank you. Lee?
Yeah, one of my main comment for one that I thought it was missing was in terms of technology development. I think today the communication technology and other digital technology developing very quick. So we have to stay, as AFoCO, especially the secretarial staff, has to stay relevant and keep updated. I just want to give you one example. For example, carbon credit market. So when they make a payment before, it was quite a long process through the bank, and then there's a certain amount of transaction cost. But to reduce that transaction cost, now they are trying to use a technology called blockchain technology, which make it open as a financing system. In that system, everybody see everybody what they are doing. So in that kind of technology development, I think we can make use of that to make it more cost effective. There are many in terms of communication. Thank you.
I'm still willing to take one or two questions so that we can close this panel discussion. So thank you. No repetition. It's only thing that one of the panelists in their own area did not capture or did not raise these things. I think it seems we have done our justice. They are very satisfied. There is no comments or queries. I want to really thank the panelists, firstly, for accepting the invitation to attend with us here today, and secondly, sitting on this panelist group and able to share your thoughts and experiences. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, this is the last round probably we have. So once again, thank you so much. So let's give a big hand to our panelists.